This show is a production of the Best in Tabletop Network. Be your best in every aspect of your game. Find us wherever you find your podcasts, or check us out on YouTube for more Bat Reps podcasts and shows. If you like what we're doing, you can join our Discord through the Best in Tabletop Patreon group or our YouTube members only area, where you'll get access to our entire library of content. Thank you for listening. Welcome to Best in Faction.
Podcast about playing Warhammer 40k competitively.
I'm Colin.
I'm Mitch.
I'm Chuck.
And also, there's Nick. Hi, Nick.
Hello.
How you doing?
Doing well.
Excellent. Welcome to your first time on the OG. I think it's just really exciting that you get to come and like cross show with us, because like Tyler and Lucas have cross showed, and now you can cross show.
That's not like crossing the streams, right? Now that we've completed the set, there won't be a problem.
No.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I don't know. What did we unlock
find
an
out.
achievement? I like achievements. Did my arbitrary digital score in some sort of application increase? Because I do enjoy
In
that.
comparison to others, so you know you're into
Ooh,
it.
That's even better. I like it when my arbitrary number is higher than other people's arbitrary numbers. That does make me happy. Anyways, welcome, Nick. We'll give you a chance to talk about yourself in just a moment. For those that don't know, Nick is one of the hosts of the Best in Faction, the Next Generation podcast on this very network. It is very much the kind of in the spirit of where this show started, with kind of newer to the tournament, aggressive tournament scene, kind of aggressive players going out there and seeing what they can do, and kind of documenting their journey. That's been really, really neat. And part of their journey was running into us. So we decided to have Nick on to talk about running into us and help us talk about our games from Tau Tippin, the GT that we went to last weekend. Not 2 weekends ago, right? Last weekend? Yeah, last week. And that GT was a lot of fun. We had an absolutely great time, and the final top table game was Nick versus Colin. That was just one of the better games of 40k I think I've played, and very excited to tell you guys about that. But before we do that, we will start our show the way we always do, where we will see how Chuck is doing. How's Chuck doing?
Pretty good. Like you said, the Tau Tipping event was so good. Like we
Oh,
had
so
so
fun.
much fun. I also got like an array of all of my favorite people to play. So it was like an extra good GT, and I really needed it. So I've been kind of up all this week. The to-do list has shrunk drastically just from like having a ton of energy. So I've been really excited. And then I didn't sleep a lot last night, so I'm bringing none of that energy to this podcast today. So
Okay. Well, nobody was expecting you to bring energy. So
oh, good.
It's okay.
I've
Mitch,
met
how
the
the heck-
expectations then.
Yeah, that's right. Gotta set them appropriately. How the heck are you, Mitch?
Oh man, when you said that last weekend was only a week ago, I was like, man, it feels like a month. It's just no, I'm good. Lots and lots of stuff going on. We're closing out a big remodel for my work, so my entire last 14 days have just been working. But it's all done and the house is real pretty. So I am now trying to figure out exactly what version of Imperial Guard I will probably be taking to the Games Workshop Open.
Yep.
Oh man, I am so ready to talk about that. Like my body is just like, okay, yes, let's do this. Forget the rest of the agenda. We're going to talk to Mitch about Guard now. Because yesterday, Hank came to me and said, should we be considering Guardborn our Eldar list? And I thought, what the heck year is it? What is happening? Where am I? Because I am a Guard player of 20 years, 27 years, something like that. And so I would be very ready for that. Yeah. So how is Colin doing? I don't know. We should figure out how to make that happen.
How are you doing, Colin?
So I think the answer to that is to ask me first and then ask Chuck second, because he's considerate enough to remember that part.
Oh,
Ooh. Pressure, but I'll take it.
we can tell that because of the different words that Chuck uses in the intro every single time.
I enjoy it.
Okay. Next time, try to do it more in the abstract. Just be like all of the filler words first, and then competitive 40K.
An Express
I-
the Dance podcast.
A
I've toyed with
about
competitive
show
podcasting in the
podcast
world of
competitive
Warhammer
40K.
40K.
What's
Yeah.
that?
Competitive podcasting in the world of Warhammer 40K.
I mean, it does feel that way a little bit with all the shows now.
Yeah. We're not doing well in
Yes.
that competition there.
No, we're losing badly, but that's okay. We're the
Yeah, I
judges for
actually
the
really
competition,
enjoy
so-
how little we're on. I like how
Yeah.
little we're on our network compared to everybody else. It's actually really quite fun. I guess I'm on it a lot, but that's actually going to decrease as the network grows. I'm just kind of kicking stuff off. Anywho, so yeah, lots of Vested Tabletop stuff happening. My own personal life, I went to the GT last week and like Chuck had an amazing time. We'll talk about that. I have been playing some Tyranids. Oh man, if you guys want to see me play my very first Tyranid game, really ever of the new codex, I played against Hank, him playing Craftworld Eldar. I YOLO'd like this Gorgon list that John Lennon made, where he's like, I don't even know if this is good. And I'm like, well, it's got 6 Carnifexes that shoot giant guns at people, so I'm going to play it. And so I took the army and I played Hank with it, and we had this absolutely bonkers game that I threw up, that I think we're throwing up today on the YouTube, with me doing commentary over it, except I took my Hank that I played against and I traded him out for an Alex McDougall. So it's basically me telling like the best Tyranid player in the world about my trash learning to play Tyranid game. And it's a hoot. So
I suspect he was kind about it.
he was very kind. There were several like, I made this, where he's like, no.
Mm.
Moments like there was a number of things where I'm like, I had this idea, and he's like, yeah, I could see how you'd have that idea. It's like, oh, there was a lot of, but what would have happened if you had done this? And it's like, I see. Anyways,
That's quality coaching right there.
if you want to play Tyranids, it really shows how good Alex McDougall is as an Art of War coach. So take a look at that video for sure. Anyway, playing 40K, been hobbying. I can't buy any of the things I want at all for like, there's like 9 kits that I want to buy right now between Eldar and Tyranids. I just can't. So hobby's being frustrating. But for the network itself, lots going on. Let me just quickly hit a few very brief things. First of all, the battle reports are continuing to go, like I just mentioned. That's really great. Also, the most fun thing about building a business is hiring people. I know Chuck agrees. Like hiring people is really fun. Okay. We're going to hire a 20 to 25 hour a week employee to be our social media coordinator. We're going to do that. We're going to post that job today or tomorrow. We have a job. We have like this is like an actual job. We have an actual like job description, and there's like a reporting structure, and there's a way that you get paid, like actual job. Okay. 20, 25 hours a week for now. And it's someone who we would like somebody who understands some aspect of tabletop gaming or Warhammer. You don't need to be a competitive 40K expert. Just the general concepts of Warhammer would be really useful. We're looking for someone who has maybe a year or 2 of experience doing social media or marketing work under a plan. So super new to career is fine, but we were looking for some experience in what we're looking for, which is basically going on all the social medias and making people aware of what we're doing here. And then also working with the showrunners to come up with strategies to get people to pay attention to the shows. We're building this amazing thing, and the next step is to make sure that we're getting a wide enough attention. Basically, it's time to now make sure everybody knows what we're doing, and that they, like all those people that didn't like Colin in the early Best in Faction days. We have to get back to them and let them know there's content that doesn't involve me now. Like these are all things that have to happen. So we're hiring that person. We're going to pay them well. We're going to treat them great. It's going to be 20 to 25 hours. And if you want that to be your full-time job, it's probably going to be your full-time job. And if you don't, that's fine too. We can do part-time for as long as we can, or find more resources or whatever. So come find me. All right, that's the Best in Tabletop update. The Best in Tabletop Open is going to happen. We know where it's going to be. We aren't selling tickets yet because I haven't signed the piece of paperwork with the hotel. So here's what June looks like if you're a big Best in Tabletop fan. No, here's what it looks like if you're a Best in Faction fan, because this is really the Best in Faction thing. So
Yeah,
first
own
of
it.
all, our first major tournament that we are running is going to be June 17th and 18th. It might be 18th and 19th. We know that I'm bad at this. But that's the weekend that it is, okay? It's going to be in Olympia, Washington, which is about an hour and a half south of the airport. I'm sorry it's not closer to the airport. When I came up with this plan, I did not know that the hotels next to the airport would rather be empty than charge a reasonable rate for conference space. They're literally not booked through all these weekends, and some of them are quoting like $8,000-9,000 just for us to have the space, and not even with catering. And like, it's just no, just fine, sit empty. Anyways, we found a hotel that has been done Warhammer tournaments before, which is really helpful. It's I'm not going to say more than that because we haven't signed the contract, but it's going to be down in Olympia, and that's about an hour and a half south of the airport. If you're coming in for the tournament, we will have a way that you can connect with the other people coming in, and we will be having people in the community help each other get down there easily to kind of save expense.
Also, that
it's
is
the
the
plan.
18th and 19th.
Thank you, 18th and 19th. So you'll want to come in on the 17th. Anyways, we're going to do a 6-round tournament. We're going to stream it. We're going to have 80 to 100 people is the goal. I don't know if we'll get there now because due to how difficult hotels have been, we're now 2 months out from this thing. So maybe it won't be as big as we originally thought it would be, but that's the goal. We have the terrain. We'll be doing player place terrain. We'll be following whatever the rule set that Charity Hammer is following, which will be whatever is the most recent everything that everybody's following. Like when so many of the largest tournament organizers in the world are coming to your event, they kind of just decide for you. So that's what's going on. So Best in Tabletop Open tickets will go on sale. God, I hope it's this week. I really, 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 really hope it's this week. Then Charity Hammer is going to be the Thursday, the 23rd to Sunday, the 26th. I have a lot to talk about for Charity Hammer. The agenda is figured out. Most of the people that are coming are known. We figured out what hotel people are staying in. There's a lot of great stuff happening on the Charity Hammer front. If I start talking about it, we won't get to our agenda today. So sometime soon, we will do a Charity Hammer episode. Probably have Nick on and the other Nick, the lesser known Nick Nanavati. So I like the chuckle that we got out of Naj on that. That was great. Okay. So new hire, Best of Tabletop, Charity Hammer. Great. That's it. That's the update. Now we have 2 things to talk about today. The first one is the data slate. Now every show has talked about the data slate now. So in our own very predictable manner, we're going to talk about it how we want to. And what that is we're not going to go into incredible detail about the details of the rules and exactly what they mean. And instead we're going to say, what's that?
I make no promises.
Okay. And instead, we're going to talk about what it means. Where is this going to go? How is this going to change the game? The amount of 40K experience that's on this show right now of games played and meta watched and meta adapted to and like, winning tournament, Mitch and I winning tournaments after change after change after change to the game. That's what we want to share with you guys is when we see this as people that have been through this a lot, what do we hear and what does it sound like? So let's get started with that. And I think I really want to start with the Marine thing.
Yeah.
Because I think it's super interesting. So basically they said, hey, you know what, Marines, if you're a Marine
And
you don't have a Storm Shield, and Sisters and Chaos Marines, if you don't have a Storm Shield, which I think is a great nuance to this, by the way, you ignore AP1, ignore NAP, which basically means every weapon in the game is 1 less AP against Marines. And fascinating because Chuck literally said like 4 times to me last weekend, how are they going to make Marines relevant? And this is an incredibly creative idea that I really, really dig. So Mitch, what does this do? Is it enough?
So it's an interesting thing. I think that a lot of people have gotten really excited about this without necessarily understanding how it works. It is absolutely a big deal. We should also emphasize that the Sisters faction that before ignored AP got a different rule, so their rule wasn't made redundant, which was very nice. That was a great subtle touch that I really like seeing in the balanced slate, because it shows that they're trying to think a little more ahead for what the effects of these changes are going to be, and they're seeing some of those consequences that maybe the old Games Workshop didn't catch as well. So the big thing to understand here, because everyone I think read it and went, "Oh, Marines have +1 armor save," and it's like, no, they still have a 3-up save. It's just they don't go to a 4-up when you face AP1, which is cool because AP1 is everywhere with doctrines, with just it's everywhere. It is everywhere. It's a little less everywhere now with Tau losing it in their Montca, but it's still.
But Mitch, hold on. But it's not just ignore AP1, right? It also,
No,
if it's an AP2
no,
weapon, they still get a 4-up.
absolutely, yeah.
I just want to clarify that.
And that's what I was getting to next. So that's the first part of it, because I heard a lot of people just being like, "Oh, I'm gonna run all the strike marines." I'm like, well, Terminators are actually the better thing there, but whatever. Because
you mean a 2-up save that ignores an AP is good?
Yeah,
that's what you're saying. That's the premise.
That's the fulcrum point. So we're gonna go into just dice math a little bit here of the difference in gating is dramatically changed for Marines and Sisters and CSM in a way that we're not seeing with any other army. They now have a across the board reduction on something that's technically better than an Invo now, which is really interesting. In a lot of ways, it's actually a better thing, because you can add on to it cover and all of these other things, and you can't buff Invos in that same way. So it's really a fascinating set of combinations. Obviously, Salamanders not being able to reroll wounds against them is insanely strong. I know that our local Salamanders player down in Oregon is going to be just like going crazy. And it's really interesting. I think some other things to think about are things like Thunderwolf Cav that have 4 wounds. All of a sudden, that durability actually matters a lot more. I don't think it's enough to make them good. Unfortunately, they need to be cheaper. But this adds a lot of play.
I'm so glad we used them as an example then.
No. It's changing. It's changing all of their. Let me give you a unit that is absolutely great now. Centurions.
Oh, wonderful.
Centurions.
Okay.
Centurions all of a sudden are like, hey, I'm the chonkiest boy. I have 4 wounds, which means that most weapons in the game that do actually take out a Marine in one shot will not take them out. And I'm gonna be like, okay, you can't roll wounds against me, and I'm gonna be in cover, and I'm gonna add +1 toughness, so that now it's very unlikely you're gonna have anything that can even wound me on 2s. So again, it's changing all the gates. This is the math that Space Marine players have to get good at now. Is okay, I'm 2-up in cover. That means that I effectively have a 0-up save, and then I'm reducing AP by 1. So now I effectively have a -1-up save, and then they can't reroll wounds, and I'm increasing my toughness. So now I've reduced their wound gating, so they're wounding me on 4s or 3s as opposed to 2s. And so now all of those reductions together equal maybe 1 dead Centurion when you would have lost 3. There's a lot of really, and then you can bring that guy back with an apothecary.
So I guess to ask, how long is that guy dead? Not long.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of really cool jank there. Sisters can use this in a different way. They can spam bodies in a way that Marines can't. I've been toying around with a lot of really weird, just hey, here's 180 sisters.
We're going to talk about the 200 sisters list again.
Yeah, no, not for long. But that list existed before the update, and then I was like, oh, well, all of this just got way harder to kill.
Yeah.
I'm again. Do I think that you want to paint and bring 180 sisters to a tournament? No, you can proxy it and play test it and see if it's something you want to play. The other thing is penitent engines reducing AP, huge. That is a big deal that I think people aren't necessarily talking about. It's not and it's also something for tanks. Melta all of a sudden becoming AP3, so now you're getting a save. There's just a lot of different little things. So people are going to be re-examining every single unit in the codex, and that is the sign of a good change.
I agree. I think that from the people who kill Marines side of the meta, I'm realizing that AP1 weapons lost a lot of value in that data slate.
Yep.
Because one of the problems that you have playing old Eldar as well is you'd end up with a lot of your bulk shooting would be either no AP or AP1, and you'd shoot at these Marines that are standing in cover, and it'd be awful. And the situation was already that scatterbikes, for example, shooting the Marines in cover don't do anything. But then you add the fact that even with Jinx, they don't do anything, right? With Jinx that ignore cover, they're still getting a 3-up,
Yep.
right? Like it's just really a lot to think about. Shuriken cannons, without rolling their 6s to wound, lost a lot of value there, and that's a big deal because Shuriken cannons are one of the better guns in the game. So Marines, I think it was a big benefit to Marines. I'm curious to hear what Chuck thinks about for his Chaos Boys.
It's a lot of the same things that Mitch just said about Marines. Obviously, the difference between 3 and 2 up is drastic. So you want to look at your 2 up saves. Chaos Space Marines already basically is a Terminator army. So that decision is quick and easy. But one of our other more famous 2 up saves is on the Lord Discordant. And that guy picking up a level of durability is also pretty frightening.
So cool.
Yeah. But beyond that, like I think is interesting because we're going to talk about chaos probably this one time. I'm going to slide in like there was also some changes to how indirect fire works, and that really combos well with power armor. And a lot of what Chaos Space Marines had trouble with, like say one of my favorite units, Warp Talons, is with one wound they've got picked up by indirect fire really quick. So with indirect fire fading from the damage profile, that all of a sudden like more and more things show up in that army. The problem is how little time I have to test because this rule is difficult to understand. Like, I understand the benefit. I don't know how far it brings that army up, right? People were steamrolling Space Marines before. So does this bring them to we can kind of play, or does this bring them to like we're a serious threat? And I that space is it's hard to determine what that is because this is such a massive change. I can't even really conceive of it properly.
Yeah, it's huge.
So one other thing, I do believe they missed the Blizzard Shield for the Wolfen Dreadnought. So theoretically, you can benefit from this and have a 4-up invo on those dreads. So those guys got better as well. And then the indirect fire, there's a really important nuance for people to understand.
We haven't even gotten to the indirect fire yet.
He brought it up.
You guys. Okay, fine. Let's not hear what Nick has to say about Space Marines since you both want to talk about indirect fire. Okay. I want to hear what Nick has to say about the change to the Space Marines. So let's do that, and then we'll talk about indirect fire, which I think, to me, is the bigger conversation anyways to the Space Marine change. So, Nick, what do you think about the Space Marine change, man?
Yeah, I mean, basically what you all have covered. It seems like the nice bump of durability the Marines needed to justify their high points cost.
Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I think the Terminators are definitely like the big winners across the factions. I, for one, am super excited to try playing Thousand Suns a little bit. 20,000 Suns Terminators sounds pretty fun. So, and I got like some friends who really like Death Guard that are now super excited to play again. So it's overall just like an exciting thing with people experimenting a lot. One of my buddies bring his White Scars out of his case for the first time in a few months.
Man, if only.
So
one of the things that I think is really interesting on the Thousand Suns front, I'm glad you brought that up, because they get to a point where giving Terminators a 4-up invulnerable save isn't really getting you much because the amount of AP it takes to get there. So now they can put the 4-up invulnerable save on other targets, and big blobs of cultists or 5-man chaos spawn units are such great targets for that. And now they have more, like, essentially they just added data slates to the codex because those are not viable. You can shoot one unit of chaos spawn a turn out and give them 4-up invulnerable saves, and they're doing something of value, right?
Yep.
I mean, stuff like that is great.
All right, so the indirect fire change, and we're going to let Mitch go first here because he's excited. But the indirect fire change is huge. Basically, what they said is, hey, if you're shooting indirect at someone, you're one die roll worse at shooting, and they get one more armor save against you. And we've talked a lot on the show about how I think all of us, I'm just going to speak for me, I think indirect fire is terrible for the game. Whenever it's oppressive, the game is frustrating for huge amounts of people. It's the most complained about mechanic for me personally in my entire time playing 40K at the table. So I love nerfs to indirect fire. As far as I'm concerned, it should be gone. I'm super excited to talk about this because it's big. Sorry about the dogs. Go ahead, Mitch.
Dogs
So,
are also excited.
um,
They hate indirect fire.
So a few things. One, it modifies your ballistic skill, not the die roll. So if someone is in heavy cover, you will actually be -2 to hit, and that stacks. So, that's an important nuance to understand. So if someone's standing in a forest and you can't see them, you are now like if you were hitting on 3s, you're hitting on 5s. So that is a very important distinction from saying it modifies the die roll. It modifies the ballistic skill base. Um, the other part of that is obviously that guard got completely exempted from all of it, which is the part I want to talk about because I don't know why they did that. That should be changed. It will be changed because it just
Say that again, Mitch. I
which
didn't
part?
understand what you said. What did you say?
That guard were exempted from all of the indirect fire rules.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So that should be changed. That just makes guard indirect much better than everyone else's, and they can bring the most of it. And combined with their other rule, that we'll be talking about later, where they automatically wound you on a hit roll of 6.
Let's just do all of guard right now, Mitch,
Okay.
while we're talking that
Sure.
for you. Let's just want you to do all of guard right now, and then
Okay.
we'll talk about
Oh,
guard
man.
and indirect fire.
You got it. Okay, so
Alright.
guard kept all of their buffs from before, so 2-up save Lehman Russes, and their orders are now auras. They gained basically everything in the army that it has the regiment keyword. As long as you have one whole regiment, like you're not you don't have multiple different regiments in different detachments. Every unmodified hit roll of a 6 automatically wounds the target, which is an insane like change in all of the math for everything that guard can do. That is the big change. The thing to understand here is this is for everything, and the other thing to understand is the way that it is currently written. It works for scions if you take pure scions. The scions have an entry in the Imperial Guard Codex. I know you'll have to blow off the dust, but you can go and read it at the beginning where they're talking about regiments, and the Militarum Tempestus keyword is treated as a brackets regiment keyword. It's just not changeable. They specifically call it out as that. So if you take pure scions, you can do this. And if you take Lambden Lions, you have AP3 scions that automatically wound on 6s to hit.
Neat.
So that is a very, very cool thing. The other part of this to understand is the way that scions regiments are broken up is they don't lose the Militarum Tempestus keyword. They gain an additional keyword, which means that if you take pure scions, you can mix and match different types of scions together to have different abilities to be able to and still have them in one army and not lose the rule. Also, to be clear for people, if you take scions and Imperial Guard together, you do not gain this rule currently. I think it will be fact differently. We will see. But raw, that is how it works. That is 100% how it works. There's no ifs, ands, or buts.
Okay.
So
you can have all of A or you can have all of B, but there will be no A and B.
Nope. Yep. It's exactly that. The other important thing to understand is they do not lose this ability if you bring in another Imperial ally. So you can put in Guard and Custodes. Guard and Grey Knights is something that looks really interesting right now because Terminators and Paladins seem like a pretty immovable object. I mean, unless you're NIDS, then they're pretty movable. But
not with 30 cultists or what do you call them? Conscripts in front of them.
Yeah. So we're gonna go into a little bit of very quick math on just to give you an idea of what this does now. So Cadia is the big winner for regiments in this case. So what Cadia does is basically you can give them an order, and if they haven't moved that turn or they count as not having moved, which they have a stratagem for 1 CP to do that, they reroll all hits, not just reroll ones to hit. So that's a really important thing. They can do that army wide, and they have a relic that lets them, as long as any unit that has a Vox caster, they can basically throw that out there, and you can have the entire table basically rerolling hits if they're not moving, and then one unit that has moved. The second important thing to understand is that there is a relic that lets you issue multiple orders to a unit. So you can and you can also make the conscripts for Cadia white shields, which means that they automatically do the orders that they're issued. They don't have to roll for it. So at this point, you can now have a group of conscripts move, re-rolling all hits, first rank fire, second rank fire. So that's 120 shots. On average, they do 36 wounds to anything in the game just from their hits.
I certainly
Nice.
wouldn't want to be
Oh,
facing that down
eh,
with a horde of demons.
Also, if you're in rapid fire range, they're AP1, which isn't nearly as scary into Marines anymore. But even like it's
I like the
a
36. I like the 36 wounds against the 5 Marines standing in cover with a 2-up save. They're
Yeah.
like, well, we're probably going to roll ones.
Yep, there goes 3 dudes.
Yeah.
What else you got?
Yeah, no, and so the other part of that is you can also make those 6s to hit explode. So there's again Ascadia. So the other thing that I think people need to be ready for is the quad mortar launcher. So it's 90 points. You can take them in squads of 3. So that's 270 points for 3. They each shoot 4d6 blast, strength 5, no AP, one damage shots. But the main thing is that you can have 36 d6 of those just shooting all the time, auto wounding on 6s, and it's a volume issue at that point. Yeah, so that's that. All of those are going to be things. On the other side, you have Scions, 10 Taurox primes with Gatling cannons and the heavy hell guns and the storm bolter on top. I gets you to 30 shots each, and that's 123 points. So again, everything there will be AP1 or AP3, and that's really interesting. And you can take 10 of those along with around 60 Scions, I believe, in a battalion. The other way you can go is Chimera spam, because you can get those guys up to it's somewhere around 24 shots, I think, for around 88 points. So that's really interesting as well. There's just a lot of really fascinating volume of fire problem or math problems to do with guard now. But all of them are scary. Like if you just think about Katie, and then the other thing we have to talk about is that all of those Cadian squads are going to have a las cannon. They're going to have a plasma or meltagun or a sniper rifle, depending on what you want to do. And then they're going to have the plasma pistol. They're going to have a Voxcaster because it's all free now.
And a power sword?
And a power sword. And you can. So I've already done the math. The maximum number of infantry squads you can fit in a 2,000 point army at 60 points each is 23. So you can have 23 las cannons rerolling to hit, auto wounding on 6s. So that gets you to around 6 wounds just with hits, plus whatever wounds you do when you actually roll the wound. So there's some really fun and interesting stuff there. And obviously, there's all the old guard like stand-ins. Like if orcs are a thing you're worried about, oh look, I have Yarick. If chaos,
I was worried we weren't going to mention Yarick. I know. Like we've been talking about guard for like an hour and a half. I was worried that Yarick wasn't going to get mentioned.
He has to be mentioned because that's the other access to all rerolls or reroll 1s to get those 6s.
Lucas, I'm sure, is so happy that every time Mitch brings up guard, he reminds people how good Yarick is. I'm sure that just makes Lucas so happy.
He's good even if their opponent's not orcs. So that's great.
Yeah,
he really is. I also love having this little guard guy with this little power claw punch it. It's great. So yeah, guard, super great. We're gonna put guard on a battle report like in the next 7 days. We're gonna start testing guard. I'm pretty excited about it. I owed Hank an apology because I didn't notice some of the guard stuff the first day. And he's like, "What about guard versus Eldar?" And I'm like, "No."
Oh
no, yeah, scary.
The maximum number of 30-man conscript blobs you can run is 13, by the way, I believe. So.
I feel like we need a Lucas v. Mitch game now at Charity Hammer. I mean, Lucas is running Gaz in his current list. So.
Yarick and Gaz, yeah.
Gaz versus Yarick.
Get his tiny power claw back.
Why didn't he have a normal size power claw? I just never understood that. Okay, so let's pull it back and talk about indirect. So yes, guard has the best indirect in the game. Good to know.
Yep.
Not that Mitch is using it if he takes 18 concert squad. All of these, Chuck, did any of the lists that Chuck just say? Excuse me, Chuck. Did Mitch just talk about any guard lists that actually sound fun to play? Here's 400 guardsmen. This one has 300 guardsmen.
I think the Scions sound great.
Oh yeah, no, the Scions are where I'm.
With the 10 trucks. That does sound fun.
You could do the 10 trucks. You could also do a lot like you could have more variety in there. It'd still be great, I think.
If you guys,
they have a lot of power.
Remember, I played that list against and beat Tanner Herbert, and then lost to Mark Perry at Charity Hammer. I played 10 Tauroxes. It was really fun.
And it's only better now.
Oh, so much better. 50 auto wounds a turn just from the trucks.
So Mitch, if you're into that space, I'm weirdly in the possession of 3 Torax kits if you need those.
Oh, I probably will. Yeah.
I also have unbuilt Torax kits.
I
Anywho,
have to see how many I have because I know I have at least 6. So
yeah. My 2 painted Torax primes have traveled with Mitch before, and I
Yes.
suspect mine end up traveling with Mitch again. Okay, so what we have is a lot of change to Indirect Fire. Now, I want to just mention from the Elfie point of view that this is a nerf to Craftworld Eldar. So if you could just keep in mind when you say the words Craftworld Eldar escapes unscathed from the data slate, we should remember that the most frustrating thing that Craftworld Eldar has is abusive indirect fire that irritates the hell out of your opponent. I've done the research. I've played extensively against people with Eldar, and I can tell you that the thing that they're most upset about is the indirect fire.
it's a huge nerf to Eldar. For like they had the best indirect fire in the game, like hands down.
Yep,
And now they
did.
don't. And that like think about how bad their indirect fire had to get. And it's still better than guard like per unit point cost, but if you take it in volume, it's not.
Right.
But like how
Well-
bad did it have to get for us to be talking about guard it like like anything
Right.
for a brand new Eldar book? Like so that's a big nerf.
Uh-huh. So if you think about it this way, Shadow Weavers are 3d6 shots, and before they were hitting on 3s, strength 6, AP2, 1 damage. They are effectively now hitting on 4s, strength 6, AP1. That is the change, effectively. So unless you're shooting something with an invul, like I don't know, if your opponent brings a bunch of pinks, I don't know. But also in that list check, I would just look at you. With the weapon platforms, I would just like walk them out and just be like, they're right there. We'll just shoot
I
them
think
normally.
that's one of the very interesting things, particularly since there's so many walls in the game. Like there's so many ruins. To not be seen, you generally have to be not on cover.
Uh-huh.
So now when they indirect fire, they get the cover anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you almost get to this place where like, do I just need to walk onto the terrain? Like,
Yeah.
I think it changes that, but yeah.
So here's the interesting thing about the Eldar nerf part of this. I had already taken indirect fire out of my list. Sorry, guys. I just had. They were pretty good in my game against Naj that we're about to talk about, but at the same time, a different 270 points over the 6 Shadow Weavers could have potentially broken the game open. Like they're good, they're legitimately good, but the way that I'm playing Craftworld Eldar, there's no heavy support room for them. So you end up with 1, and it's a Night Spinner or it's 3 Shadow Weavers. And I think that this makes it real easy to not take them. And as an Eldar player who can't fit all the toys that he wants in his list, thank you, GW. You've made it very obvious to me that I shouldn't be playing with indirect fire. So I won't. All right. So who else wants to talk about indirect fire before we continue on? Any other big armies that they already wrecked it for Nids. So like
The Rucka Truck is
so
now
bad.
at the quad hit. Like it's done.
Yeah. Because it's a
Sorry.
ballistic skill penalty. So-
Well, it has a ballistic skill 5 and a +1 to hit.
right.
So it's going to go to ballistic skill 6 +1 to hit. If they get a -1 to hit, it goes to a 6.
Yeah.
Theoretically, could actually get to a 7 up, which 6 is always hit, but hilariously bad.
Yeah. Sorry, Wrecker Trucks, your time in the sun is done.
Yeah, we could
Oh.
probably bring their points back down.
So the other one that got really kicked in the pants that didn't need it was the disintegrator for AdMech. It was already it had already been nerfed and made more expensive, and now
But
it's-
nobody playing it.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Like it's now bad. It was okay before you could justify it. It filled a purpose, but now like you have to take a character to get it back to its original ballistic skill, just so it can shoot the guy that I can't see. Like, and it's only AP1 when now like, and then when you're shooting at a Marine, it's basically AP none, which is what you want to shoot at with a 2 damage weapon. It's just not good. Bad now. Bad,
I think
bad.
worth noting is when I think about Chaos, I still put the Plague Burst Crawlers in very regularly.
I
don't
was
think
just
I've
going to
said
ask
that.
about that. Are Plague Burst Crawlers a Space Marine or are they a demon?
They're Death Guard, so they are Heretic Astartes. So they get +1 to or they ignore 1 AP, and they are taking this negative here.
So I think Plague Burst Crawlers, that changes my opinion of them pretty drastically. But at the same time, their indirect fire is now much worse.
I think they're actually better now than they were before. particularly
think-
the way I played them. I generally drove them out into the middle of shit anyway, so
Yeah.
they can see the target.
I'll just shoot my mortar at that guy.
Yeah,
Whatever.
their playstyle changed a little bit, but the extra durability totally balances that out.
I think
So.
the frustrating thing for me about this is that I was all excited to take less wave serpents and stuff and play the game the way I want to play, which is people all over the board doing things. And unfortunately, guard not getting nerfed. Guard's indirect fire being ignored means we basically all have to still build for indirect fire, which is dumb.
Mm,
Nick, no, you disagree?
I don't know. They're ballistic skill 4, and you've got LFR, so
True,
you know.
but hitting me on 5s with full rerolls and auto wounding on 6s still feels bad.
So you're only going to be doing that with mortars because those are the only infantry that can be ordered. You have to take a tank commander to order the quad mortars, and they're just going to be re-rolling one.
Okay.
So they aren't going to re-roll everything. The big issue with them is that they still can get the exploding 6s to hit. So they'll auto wound and have and still maintain those hits for the wound roll, and they're going to go up 1 in AP. And they're very small and very, very hideable. So like taking 9 of those and hiding them is not hard.
Like they're probably going to get 3 or 4 wounds per quad mortar on your Eldar.
Yeah.
That's going to hurt. So yeah, you can't be standing around.
I don't know how many people out there own that many quad mortars though.
Hi.
So.
You're in Oregon. Can't you hear the 3D printer spinning up right now?
They're all excited. They're all printing Carnifexes. So.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, they're playing the actually good army. They're not just happy that the worst army in the game is now like solidly in the A tier. You know.
Okay,
so.
let's blast through the rest of these changes. Did we talk enough about sisters, Chuck?
The other piece is that they get a prayer dice every turn instead of every battle round. So
Mhm.
getting 5 more miracle dice feels
Huge.
great.
Makes them almost as good as fate dice.
No,
No.
but they did actually mention as it like they basically I don't remember what it was, but essentially they said like, yeah, sorry, fate dice are so good. Here's some more miracle dice. Does that make it better? And it's like, no, but,
No.
it's certainly nice.
I owe the internet an apology. I didn't know that Stigler had 2 disintegrators in his list that won LVO, so that's probably not.
That's not no use. For
That's
sure.
not no use. Yeah,
Vindication.
In my defense, I feel like LVO was 7 years ago, so I don't know. Like,
Well, also like I've not played a game against Mad Mix since Mitch and I played at Charity Hammer.
I'd are not super popular anymore.
Yeah, I just don't see him. So.
I write lists with them, and they're really cool and fun and stuff. And then I'm like, oh man, but if I'm gonna push around a bunch of bodies, I could be auto wounding on 6s and play with my boys.
Yep.
So it's really hard to sway me from the guard. Like it's just Space Wolves that do that.
Can we just all agree that Custodes got viciously brutalized, and we don't need to spend a lot of time on it?
I do not understand why that had to happen, but whatever.
Like the react. First of all, this is what we call the orc moment. Orcs get a really good book. Look at our book in 8th edition and 9th edition, and both times this happened. Look at our book. Look how great our book it is. And then other people get new rules and they're like, oh, I'll just kill orcs. Orcs don't matter. And then 2 weeks later, GW says, oh yeah, here's all the nerfs that orcs now Custodes need.
Yeah.
Right? Like Custodes were already in trouble. Like they were already falling. You can see it. Fight Club talked about it. You can see it in the data. They were struggling against Harlequins. They were struggling against Craftworld Eldar. Like Tau is good against Custodes. Like they were already having problems, and then they're like, okay, well, all their good strats are once a game, and this and that and this suck it, Custodes.
So
no,
I can offer a different perspective. I think.
Okay.
I think that Custodes the floor for playing Custodes was so low it had to be brought up. It was at the point where, I mean, yes, if you play against
the floor and ceiling and all that is worthless because no one understands any of it. Let's say it as
okay. The skill
and this
level
isn't me making
so
fun
low.
of Mitch. This is the Discord arguing for months about what floor, ceiling, and skill.
About how wrong.
Oh, if you tell me that, if you tell me that's why it's happening, I'm going to do it more. Like
No, I would like us to be clear. What you're saying is Custodes were too easy to play.
They were far too easy to play. They're still easy to play, by the way. Let's be clear here. I don't think that Custodes are going to podium. I think that Custodes are absolutely a 3-2 and 4-1 army all day long. Not a problem. Like, unless you're playing against top tier armies all
I
the
don't think
time.
we need to penalize people for their army being easy to play. I don't think we need to nerf an army into the ground because it's easy to play. Lots of stupid armies are easy to play.
Okay, but here's what I'm trying to say. It was
How
easy
is
to
it?
play and gave a really uninteractive, unfun experience at that base level. I watched
Sure.
a lot of Custodes games at LVO. I like now. I'm not saying that. Oh well, all these other powerful rule sets that are able to beat them now, like those rule sets need to come down too. I'm not a fan of the everything needs to be crazy
Sure,
because
sure.
it creates too much of a who goes first or who goes second depending on the rule set or the terrain set. Like that's not great. Everything needs to come down. Their durability was too high. Did they maybe overdo it? Possibly, but I guarantee you it's probably because they got a massive amount of feedback of people going, I played against Custodes, couldn't even kill like 5 guys. Like that is the feel bad moment.
But that's what I'm saying, Mitch. They're responding to everybody's upset about Custodes as though it's exactly happening right now.
Well,
These
but
changes take time, and so what happens regularly from GW is the meta adapts, right? People figure out how to build against those lists, and other armies get buffed up. And while that's happening, the nerfs that were already set in place are
I don't
come out.
think that the feedback I'm talking about was just from competitive players. I'm talking about their Barrage Hammer player base. What Custodes brought to the table is toxic for that play environment
Sure,
because
I
it
agree.
results in an immensely unfun experience.
And I think it needed to get nerfed. I think this
So
is very heavy-handed. That's
it
all
is
I'm saying.
it is absolutely heavy-handed. But at the same time, the great thing about the data slates is that they can pull out a nerf if they drop down. Because like the other thing that we have to take into consideration, Custodes are going to drop a ton because all of the Space Marine players who are playing Custodes because Space Marines weren't good just got a bunch of new rules to toy around with, and Custodes just got punched in the balls. So
And
they're
literally
all gonna move.
everyone owns Space Marines.
Yeah. So they're all going to move to Space Marines.
Yeah.
So Custodes are going to plummet anyway. So let's let Custodes plummet. Let's see if they will actually maybe remove, like, let's give them constructive feedback of like, hey, Custodes are not good enough now. See if they remove the rules in 3 months. If they can, I want to see them do that. I want to see them go, okay, you know what? Bikes and infantry get OBSEC. We still don't believe, like, like, or change it up. Like, let's see them, like, they're obviously willing to buff faction. Let's, like, they nerfed a faction maybe too heavy handedly. The other nerfs we saw weren't quite as heavy handed. Some of them were good, some of them were bad. We can't expect them all to strike that perfect balance. What I want to see them do is continue to pursue that balance with the next data set.
All I was saying is they got brutalized.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm not apologizing for that because
No,
I think
no,
they
no.
did.
No, I'm just providing a different perspective for why. I think that the
I
player
think that they,
experience
yes.
for Barrage Hammer was.
And I think that the community needed them to be brutalized, and it's not fair. That's what I'm trying to say.
Oh yeah.
I think that what the community wanted is for it to be brutalized, and I don't think that that's actually fair to the game or to Custodes players. That's what I'm saying. It's not Custodes players' fault. Yeah, go ahead, Chuck.
I'm just going to jump in here. You guys are saying the
You
same thing
go.
over and over again. Custodes is one of those armies that's like this high durability specific function that people had to tech against because they were S tier. There's a weird thing about them becoming not present in the meta about how they get stronger that way.
Mhm.
And there's definitely some room for that. People are not going to be valuing strength 6 again. Like that's done. We're past thinking that's important. But it's still important to that Custodes player. So I think there's going to be some room for dedicated Custode players to find new paths. But they're certainly nowhere near S tier anymore. I think they've dropped pretty heavily, but I don't think there's no hope there. There's
Mhm.
room, but it's not. It certainly does not feel good, right? There's no making that the truth.
Right. All right, let's continue on. I don't know if any of these AdMech changes are actually new. They don't do the thing in the data slate where they point out what's new and what's not. Is it all the same? Okay.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I think it's-
really basically the same. I don't think they nuked them from
Okay.
orbit and they're not tweaking it because the win rates haven't been up. So
And the exploding 6 is not just against Imperium, isn't new for Chaos Space Marines,
Yep,
right?
that's
Okay, so then none of the Drukhari stuff's new, none of the Necron stuff is new, none of the Orc stuff is new. Harlequins. This seems relevant.
any changes here?
So Harlequins got a couple changes. First of all, they said, "Hey, the thing that makes it so that you're actually farther away than they think you are to be shot at, that's on 1 unit a turn. That's a buff that you hand out. That's not an aura." Which also means it doesn't. I didn't even think about that, Nick. That means that it doesn't. You don't get it turn 1, right? If you
Yes.
go second.
It's also only able to be handed out to core units, I believe. It might be core and character.
Oh my god, I didn't even know. Okay, so it's just gone. It
You
just
can't put it on
worthless.
the boats. Yeah, there might be some play with like bikes or 10-man troop squads running around, but in its current form, it's gone.
Okay, so people will be taking the -1 attack aura instead then,
Or just saving the points and beefing out
or
other
just not
stuff.
taking a Shadow Seer. I guess is the other way of looking at it.
I haven't seen a Harlequin list out of Shadow Seer in
Yeah.
centuries. It's last
And then
century.
they also made it so that the Death Jester's reroll that he was abusing only works in combat and is only there's one other part to it too, right? It's only no, it's the same thing. It's just only in combat.
Yep.
So he can't just be like, I'm going to shoot that guy, and this is a 6.
hmm
And so he's dead. Sorry, Death Jester. And then
I don't
they
know.
raised
My
what?
limited experience, he was like killing my characters twice over. So I think he's probably still fine.
I think
What do you
he's
think, Nick? You played a
still
bunch of Harlequins. Is he still fine?
good. I think he's still good, but he's definitely not gonna like one shot any character he looks at anymore.
I
Yeah.
mean, the presence of Eldar in general, Eldar snipers, the biker guys, and everything. Now, I'm definitely looking at Ogre and bodyguards for my guard characters. Just
Not against Eldar, you're not. We don't. We don't care
no,
about.
you don't like the
sniper
cloud
rifles.
runners? Okay.
No, the Shroud Runners are a neat utility piece that does some fun stuff, but their shooting is they're like they're 105 points for 3 strength 4 sniper rifle shots a turn.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
what if we're
Didn't the
talking
more
bikes
about
have
concerned
sniper.
guns
about
too?
Rangers being the go-to troop
Oh yeah,
choice.
Rangers are great.
But yes, that's true if they ever got to shoot.
As as a
They're
guard
busy
player,
doing other things.
I have 4 wound characters, so like
Yeah,
a ogre and bodyguard, like it's not hard to pick off my dude. Some of
No,
them are
the
3
Death
wound.
Jester is a much more bigger concern. Is all I'm trying to say.
oh for sure. That guy still picks up
Absolutely.
Yeah.
a guard
I
infantry guy.
I like
easy.
him tag teaming a lot with the solitaire as well, because you could soften up a character and then send the solitaire in to finish them off.
Oh, that's true. I like that. And then, so Star Weavers went up 15 points a model from 80 to
Mhm.
95. Void Weavers went up 40 points a model from 90 to 130. So that Void Weaver point change, that's probably about right. It might be a little over heavy-handed. Like if at release, I thought it should have been maybe 115 or 120. So we overshot it a bit, but probably deserved. So basically, they're saying the main aura that people are frustrated about in shooting at the Harlequin Castle is gone. The Death Jester is not just automatically getting a 6 every time he shoots, which was really, frankly, kind of offensive, even playing with it. Like,
Agreed.
I'm going to hit 5 to 12 times is a really weird thing. And then the Star Weaver's going up a little bit. Okay, they were a pretty efficient transport. I get that. The Void Weaver going up a lot, I think, is completely appropriate. It was the most undercosted data slate in the entire Eldar book. So basically, they're saying you're a little bit easier to kill, and you're going to get 300 less points, 250. How many points is it on your tournament list, Nick, that you just played?
I think.
Well, I figured you'd already know
240?
this.
No, I've already like constructed other lists, so I was just like, oh,
Well,
Ogre's
you had
dead.
6 voids, so that's 240.
Yeah,
And then you had 4. Did you have 5 transports?
5 transports. It's I think 315 points.
Oh right, the transports went up too.
So he would have 315 points. His defensive aura would be worse, and he would not, and his Death Jester wouldn't be as good. Like that's a lot. My feeling on this, okay. So I'm going to give two takes on this, and then I want to hear Nick's take. My initial take was that's plenty. Harlequins are probably good and not overpowered, and we'll still see them, and we'll see them mixed in with Eldar, and there's still good stuff there that should be played with the Troopmaster, the Solitaire. A unit of Void Weavers isn't completely terrible at 390 points for 3 of them, sadly. So maybe it'll be okay. I want to tell you that the immediate response, next thing I got was several of the very respectable Harlequin players that I know being like, it's not enough. This army is still a massive problem. They were looking for light to be nerfed. The ability to go 22 inches, shoot your gun with no penalty, is just in their mind. It's just the alpha on it is too harsh, and the army's too easy to hide. So there's just too many armies in the game that you go first against, and it's over. I know that at Anthony's tournament last weekend, he was playing this really like quality guy character player playing Eldar, and Anthony went first, and the guy ended up scoring 14 points for the entire game playing Craftworld Eldar because the Harlequins are so fast that if you do decide let's go and the whole army goes, a lot of the time your opponent is just completely loses the game right then. So that's lessened by having 300 less points. Like, let's not joke about that, but it's still the fastest army in the game with some pretty offensive output, is what I would say. What's your take, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree. Because we got hit in points more so than like stratagems, like custodies. Like the core of the army is still there. It's just now like you're making more choices. Like you're cutting more like fun stuff from the list. You're cutting more things that like help you play the mission a little better, squeeze out a few more points to just like run pure efficiency. I do think you cut some voids. I think like obviously you can't run 9 voids anymore. That's like
No,
you don't have anything on the board. I think
but I think
6
you can
goes
run
down.
6.
Yeah, I like the switch to 4 that like Anthony is suggesting, like one big blob of 3 and then just one kind of running around. The strongest thing about the squad of 3 now is that it can like either blast forward super far, or if you want to play a less aggressive game, it can come out and then fire and fade behind terrain
Mhm.
over and over and over again. And with indirect nerfs, it's like,
And you can LFR it because it's only
how
the
are
one thing
they?
you're trying to save.
Yeah, how are they killing that? I mean, it's -1 to hit innately too, so you know.
But I know, but there's lots of ways to hit it better than that. Hey, if you're still
Yeah,
doing light, obviously you're only hitting on the force. But I'm just saying, like, my point is, you can also have the Shadow Sphere with the Feel No Pain aura near it if you want. Like, if it's one unit, it's easier to focus your defensive things on it. That's all I'm trying to say.
definitely, I agree. So I think that like into new nids, Harlequins were already going to have a tough time.
Yep, I agree.
And I think they'll
Yeah.
have a tougher time now because it's like their best tool into killing the big nid monsters was the prismatic cannons.
And it's not
Um,
just that a unit of Raveners like tables part of a Harlequin army.
yeah. I actually think too,
Raveners are a thing? Okay.
You don't know how many attack. Okay, we don't
No.
have time to talk about Raveners right now.
yeah. I think new Space Marines might give them a little bit of a challenge because like Harlequins were the army that just got like 60 free Shuriken cannons, and well, those are all AP1, and Marines ignore that now.
Yeah.
Oh, there you
Um,
go. Neat.
I actually think I really think Harlequins are in a rough spot. Like, I really do. I think that, like, they were the Void Weavers were the army. If you're moving to 4, I'm just not that afraid. Maybe
So,
I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's not that scary to me.
I think it's a yeah. I'll let you. Sorry,
Sorry,
Mitch.
no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to step over you, Nick. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I'll just real quick. Yeah, I think it's a lot more of like an aggressive play style now. Like you kind of, I mean, if you're playing light, you go for some blast forward and shoot all the troops in the boats and just hope that you kill enough of your opponent's army before they can like hit you back.
Oh,
But
so
I do
that's
think
why
it
Anthony
opens
still
up.
likes it.
Yeah, I do think it opens up some interesting builds like Dark and Twilight now are fun. Obviously, those are not that great into nids. So if you want to beat
Right.
nids, best bet's probably still playing light. But if you want to have some fun fighting Marines in melee, I mean, I'm personally looking at Dark. I like that a lot. So.
Yeah. Okay. I did want to talk. Oh, sorry, Mitch. You had something to say.
so a couple things. First of all, I think that a bunch of IG players coming back is actually very interesting for seeing how Harlequins do. I know they can kill a lot of things very quickly, but if you have 360 of those things and your whole strategy is to run forward, and everything they have is they hit on 4s anyway. They don't care about any of your nerfs really.
Right.
So there's a volume of fire thing there, and also something I just realized is their new rule works on Overwatch. So if they hit you on Overwatch, they wound you on Overwatch. And when you're charging like 30 conscripts, that matters. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I know. I tell you what Harlequins don't like is 36 auto wounds
Yeah.
from one
Mhm.
squad before even rolling to wound.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it gets really interesting really quickly. Well, and the thing is if you come at me, which Harlequins tend to want to do, I'm going to be in rapid fire range, and I can do that with all the units. It's not just one, because I don't need the AP1 there. So it drops to like, because you don't have the exploding, but you're still going to be at like 30 wounds per unit. So it gets dumb. But that was just something I just realized was that it worked in Overwatch, and I was like, oh, that's really really fascinating.
Huh. I do want to talk about Craftworld Eldar for just a moment before we wrap up this. Oh, we have to talk about Tau as well.
Oh
One
yes.
of you should prepare to talk about Tau because I didn't put any thought into that. So Craftworld Eldar, did not get nerfed heavily or directly other than the under fire nerf. Many people are asking why, and I think it's important to understand that when we come on and I say that I think it's the strongest rule set, I also am saying that it's the hardest to play rule set. And as Mitch talked about, it does matter. Ease of difficulty of use of army matters a lot. Craftworld Eldar do not have the win percentages to warrant a nerf like 3 weeks after their 5 weeks, whatever it is after the codex.
They weren't
We
pulling
haven't seen that data at all.
89% win rate, guys.
What's that?
I said they weren't pulling that 89% win rate.
Yeah,
with
people are
Harley.
saying, and actually somebody just asked in the chat if what is this one of the quickest nerfs to an army post codex? I mean, Iron Hands that one time
Yeah,
got nerfed
definitely
like,
holds the record.
but yes, Harlequins got nerfed aggressively and very quickly, and it was absolutely necessary. The win percentages we saw were way worse than anything that had ever been documented in the time that since Falcon started pushing that they were better than Double Spear Yunari pre-nerf. Like, it was really, really bad. So
Well,
yes, they needed it.
And they were showing up like it wasn't like one winning a tournament, it's like the whole podium. That's a sign that there's a problem you have to address immediately. And it also nerfing this quickly discourages bandwagoning to a degree, right? Like everyone who just hopped on there because it was the most busted thing now has all these models that are not very valuable because there's a lot of people who are going to want to sell them. So there is a certain amount of like a lesson to be learned for like how hard you want to chase the meta, how hard can you afford to chase the meta. Like time is something you can't get back. If you painted those and you did all that stuff, like, and it was just to have the most busted thing that I personally have try to look at the value proposition before I chase those clearly way over tuned armies, because sometimes it's just not worth it. But if you want to GP with it, it might be.
I mean, but at
Pin Scion trucks.
At the same time, Mitch, the thing about the Harlequins being so good and Custodes being so good is they were good with the things people already owned, because there's only there's a handful of data sheets. People needed to buy a couple boats.
Well, what I'm saying is, I'm not talking about Harlequin players. I'm talking about bandwagoners who did not own Harleys at all, and just jumped onto the just jumped onto the train because that was the best rule set. Those people specifically, and again, if you want to do that, that's great. It's just something to reflect on, that clearly they are willing to nerf things faster now. So how much do you want to budget and drop for something that might not be playable to the standard that you bought it for more than a month or two?
And just as a friendly reminder, 3D printing GW models is still illegal. Okay, moving on. Tau. Who wants to talk about Tau?
Two major changes. Okay. The Monka got dropped quite a bit, and that it doesn't -1 anymore, right? Like, that's a huge change. And then their strats for making your charges harder don't stack with each other, so they're a little bit less able to prevent you from getting into like the one unit they put out, and then their damage just obviously going down. In addition to that, hitting into Marines, like, they're gonna have a hard time.
You think?
So I think they got hit pretty good. I don't think they're gone. I think that book is really versatile.
What I'm hearing from my Tau friends is that triple Storm Surge is probably now the list. Like, it was already out there, but people are saying that that's the thing, and other people are saying it doesn't hit hard enough. Triple Storm Surge doesn't. But I can tell you, as a person who's been playing Fire Prisms at every Eldar list, I'm not worried about Triple Storm Surge.
I also don't like the Triple Storm Surge list with a player plays terrain meta. Yeah. Specifically, that's the problem. That's why I don't think it's good. I think it can be perfectly fine without that. But
why?
Because you can always see the Storm Surges, but the Storm Surges can't always see you.
Yeah. If you overlap, basically, you can make it so you can't see into your zone at all.
Yeah, but you can still see them. And so there's a lot of ways to do that. And it's just not good for the Storm Surges that way. It's a board presence problem as well. I personally prefer the all of the transports with fire teams just jumping out, and I think that board control style, I mean, it speaks to me personally anyway. If I could do that with Guard, I'd be doing it. I think it's a really cool and very versatile list that doesn't rely on the thing that got nerfed the hardest for Tau, which was their Indirect, right? It got hugely affected by this. it doesn't have nearly the bite. I mean, my garter's still scared of it, but like it's not nearly as good.
Okay, I think we did a good job on Tau there. Actually, that's very concise. So now it's time to move on to our next topic. And before we do that, I do want to acknowledge that we didn't let Nick introduce himself. So we acknowledge that you're from the best, you're from the Next Generation podcast. But why don't you just share a little bit about how did you find competitive 40K and kind of what is competitive 40K for you right now? Like kind of, how did you get into it and what armies are you really excited about playing? Just a little bit for those that haven't met you before, Nick.
Yeah. Like Colin said, I'm one of the hosts of BIFPOD TNG. I got into competitive 40K in 8th edition, I think January 2019. I'd played for a while, like in high school and college with some friends, but it was mostly just for fun. I was playing orcs a lot, orcs and dark angels and space wolves actually. And right around January, there was someone that offered a bunch of Necrons in exchange for some Dark Angels and Space Wolves, and I'd always wanted to play Necrons. That sounds super fun. So I traded them out and went down to my local game store with my buddy Max, Guardian Games in Portland, and we joined the monthly league there. And it was a way of Warhammer that we'd never seen before, like the ATC missions and everything. And I'm like, oh, this is like much more organized than like Maelstrom running around, killing each other and just doing dumb stuff. And I'm like, this is kind of fun. Like I didn't really see Warhammer as a way to be played this way. So we, I think, went down for a few weeks, and like one night we're like, are we gonna do this? Are we gonna like try to become competitive players? Because it's like once you look at a game competitively, it's hard to like take a step back and not look at it competitively. So it's like it'll change how we see Warhammer forever, I think. And we did it, and I mean, super fun. I've been playing it since then with like a little break in 2020, where couldn't go to any events. But started with Necrons, played orcs here and there, played Eldar here and there. I'd say those
The
are
robots are your favorite, though, yeah?
the Necrons are my favorite, but I'm also someone that really likes experimenting with different play styles. I'll always come back to them when there's like a change to them, be like, I want to test out their new rules and see how they are. But they've also never been like great ever since I've played the game. They weren't great in 8th edition. They weren't great in 9th. So it kind of sucks when it feels like I hit a point of like, there's like not really much more I can go with this army. How do I get better? Let me try
Yeah.
another army and like learn a different
A
skill.
ceiling, if you will.
Yeah.
I strongly encourage you to develop that love for something like Eldar, which is what I have done. And then every time I go back to them, they're good. Like whenever I think that's a stronger love. I think strategically speaking.
So yeah, that's kind of my story.
All right. And you also are now coming to Charity Hammer. I almost said Charity Hammer alone, but you didn't come to last Charity Hammer, did you?
No, I did
You were
not.
at the Prep GT for it.
Those were the prep GT.
That's what I was thinking of. The problem is that those events were next to each other and both at my house.
Yeah, they
So like I
were.
get these images of people. But anyways, yeah, Nick's going to be a Charity Hammer. We're going to have him representing the Necrons at least a little bit. He can play whatever he wants in the GT, but there will be some Necron represent. I actually think we might need to have a that orc thing where we had the 4 orc lists. I think we might need to have the 4 Necron lists. Find out who the best Necron player is.
Oh man,
Are there 4 Necron players?
Well, we got a Tempe,
there's
and we
2.
got a Nick, and we got a Chuck.
Oh,
And I bet I can get a Dave. I bet I can get Dave.
Dave, well,
from
yeah,
the
he's a
local-
great
yeah.
Necron
oh yeah,
player.
there you go.
I bet I could get him to come. I can't remember if he told me he was busy that weekend or not. But I'm sure we can find another person who's excited about Necrons. I don't think that's going to be that hard. So I'm just saying that could be pretty, as Michael himself would say, that'd be pretty spicy.
That would be.
All right, it's time to talk about a GT. Man, I had not been to a GT in like 6 months. This was so incredibly fun. We went to Tau Tippin in Hoquiam, Washington, which is over on the peninsula. That's what Jason Bird's store, Lion Guard Gaming. He's got 2 different things with 2 different names. Lion Guard Gaming, fantastic store. They've done more work on that tournament facility to make it have even more space, which was really great. He runs his tournaments great. The train's wonderful. The train is very, very similar to what we play with on stream. That is not accidental. I am literally practicing to play at his store at all times. which is a funny thing because I do well at that store. And it started off in the 40s. I didn't get the exact number, but we had a bunch of drops on the first day from a bunch of things that were happening around the area, not as much as the game. And we ended up at the low 30s by the end of round 5. It was a heavily custode. It was like the tournament was custodes, Tau, and elves. Was basically almost everything that was there. And it was just an incredible amount of fun. So what we're going to do, I took Craftworld Eldar, Nick took a very meta Harlequin list, and Chuck took his Bellicor list that he's been playing with. So what we're going to do now is Chuck and I will talk through what we took and why we took it. Remember, this is the Show Your Work podcast, so we'll talk about how the list works. For my portion of this, a lot of the learnings for Craftworld Eldar are in the list design. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time in the list design, a little bit less time in my games. I have 2 games in particular, the Tau game and my game with Nick, that I want to talk about pretty extensively. But the rest of my games are, unfortunately, a level of list mismatch, even against competitive lists, that there isn't the learnings there. So that's what I'm going to do. But I think Chuck is different. I think Chuck's games are where his learnings are. So there'll be a little bit of an imbalance there in who's talking at what point, and that's okay. So Chuck, why don't you start by talking about your list, what you took, why you took it?
So I took Disciples of Bellicor, the actual Army of Renown. Let's go through what pieces I have in here. I got Bellicor, Contorted Epitome, 30 Pink Horrors, and 6 Corn Furies in a patrol. And then I have a space. Almost. And then I have a Space Marine patrol with 2 sorcerers and 10 Chaos Cultists.
End of list.
Yeah. The last unit is 861 points in reserve.
Nice.
The idea with the list is that I'm going to have a pink horror blob. Let me look. I've got it written here. That is going to have 73 blues and 70 brimstones. That I could just spawn that many. So we have 171 wounds in that one unit
With an invul.
with an invuln, 4s, 5s, and then as I take morale saves, the Disciples of Bellicor have a 2 CP strat where I roll a 1, so I get D6 pings back, so I add even more guys back into the unit.
It's so neat.
What's really great about this is while they're doing that, as long as I put them down within coherency. And if you do slow dice, that means I can put 2 blues down 2 inches away from a guy, and then I can put 2 more blues down 2 inches away from them, and so on. So I can make these long tendrils. So like if you don't put OBSEC on your backfield objective and you deign to shoot at my unit, I'm gonna take it. um, that comes up a ton. Like that's really what the list's whole game is about. Um, I think the other thing to note that we'll see as I talk about my games is some lists don't have enough firepower to actually chew through the unit. Some lists have enough firepower to finish it out, say turn 4 or 5, and then some lists have enough firepower to be done with it in turn 2.
I'm sorry.
In a lot of cases, that's what determines whether I get to play the game or not. So then I have to switch up my summoning to bringing out other things in hopes of changing that up, right? So experience has been huge in getting better at this particular list.
An interesting point about that, Chuck, is we identified in our game with that list that Eldar is one of the problems because of bulk of fire. As I look at what other people are taking, I actually don't know that you're going to be as in the trouble that you think you're going to be, because the indirect fire is gone, which is one of the main blast tools, and people are playing like Banshees don't have a lot of attacks, right?
I don't fear Banshees at all. I fear Warp
Yeah,
Spiders at this
but that's
point.
what I'm saying. Like, well, most people are taking 1 unit of Warp Spiders. My point is, like, people aren't taking the bulk fire things.
Yeah.
That are going to be really good there. And scatter bikes aren't popular, and Marines make them even less popular. So it could be that the meta response for Eldar to handle Marines makes them worse against you. It's a very real thing. I
Um,
thought about.
all of the things that Mitch was just talking about for Imperial Guard,
Yeah.
look
Oh,
this
I'm
up
massive about it.
immediately. Absolutely, just destroy me. I also have
True.
Centurions and Grey Knight Terminators and stuff pick up. Like
Yeah.
that's all problem too. Like I think it's actually this data slate makes this army worse
Oh,
because there's
that's
more
too bad.
apex predators in the environment.
But maybe you can have a knight. You could have a knight. That makes it more fun.
It certainly changes things. We will see. There's so many rules that are unknown about that I have no idea what that will do. But I did definitely order a white dwarf to find out.
I
So that's
Great.
the
I
list.
I want to say
Okay.
I said this on in the Discord, but like it's such a cool, unique concept,
Mhm.
and it's something I haven't seen like since 7th edition, where it was the first the actual Decurion for the Necrons that had like until they nerfed it, you could chain out warriors in a similar way
Mhm.
when they came back. But this is such a like next level version of that. It's just it's unique, and as like someone who like crafting lists is my favorite part of the game. Like I really appreciate that. Like that's such a rare thing to see in the wild.
Yeah.
I think it would benefit our listeners to explain kind of the concept, which is the only thing I can. So as your opponent,
Yeah.
the only thing I can shoot at is the pinks.
Mhm.
Right? That's it. The only thing I can really charge is the pinks, unless I'm incredibly fast. As I kill that pink unit, which has OPSEC, it spirals out like Necrons do, and literally while I'm killing it, it takes the table. So
Mhm.
on the very first turn of the game, you could take every objective if I try to kill that unit,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And if I
Now,
don't come stop you, you're going to score how many points?
all of them. But the list will get 94 points.
That's what I'm
Um,
saying.
if I'm not, if you don't interact with me, so
Right.
you have to. Um,
So it's like patchwork and Nax for World of Warcraft. It is a DPS check. You're like, hey, you have to come stop this. Do you have a way to do it?
yeah,
And most people don't.
I enjoy playing the list a ton. It's really fun, really intriguing, and I'm active in every phase, not just every phase of my turn, but my opponents as well. Like every time they do something, I do something. So it's a very entertaining list to play. Uh, that's for sure. You want to go into my games, or do you want to talk about your list
No, I'll
first?
talk about my list.
Okay.
Actually, no. Let's talk about. I think that makes more sense. Let's talk about your games.
Okay.
Do you want me to read
What's
you your opponents like I often
sure?
do? Okay.
Yeah. Throw
I got
throw
it
out
up right here.
Colby's Shadowkeepers to start out.
Oh yeah, you got to start with some. You got to start with some. Um,
Let me tell you how happy my list is to see somebody has Shadowkeepers instead of Emperor's Chosen. Um, a
yeah.
6
So
up
he's.
feel no pain is not the same as a 4 up feel no pain.
That's right. He's got Shadow Keepers. He's got a Men at Arms unit. He's got Void's Men at Arms. He's got a Blade Champion. He's got a Shield Captain on Dawn Eagle Jetbike and Trajan. Those are three really weird HQ choices.
They're amazing, every one of them.
Yeah. And then 3x3, actually, sorry, one guard squad unit with spears, two custodian units with the Sagittarium, then 2 units of wardens, and then 3 bikes. It looks like these bikes have the incorrect weaponry to deal with you.
That is correct.
They have missile
Um,
launchers, not bolters.
he does not actually have enough shots to kill my army over the course of the entire game, even with his perfect proficiency.
Hmm.
Um, I knew that walking into the game. Uh, he did not fully conceive of that. So we're going to go through rounds 2 and 3 real quick, or turns 2 and 3 really quick on this one. I put Bellicor out on a flank by himself. I said it was bait when I did it. He knew it was bait, but he also didn't want to interact with the pinks, so he launched all of his bikes and his bike captain up there and launched all of his missiles into Bellicor. He's surprisingly durable in this scenario, even with the Shadowkeeper ignoring his invuln. Um, and Bellicor made it. He lived like on 6 wounds. He'd set it up so the captain could charge into me from there, and then he made a mistake. He fired his Sagittarium guard at the pinks because you got to get started on the pinks sometime. Well, I made 10 blues off of him shooting at me because I took it worked out well that way, and I built a line right around the front of Bellicor so he couldn't get within an inch with his bike captain, so Bellicor lived a turn. I was also took that objective back. So I scored it got an 8 instead of he's trying to put me on a 4. Because those bikes would have taken the objective from Bellicor, but the blues took it back with Obsec. Um, that was a pretty big hit. Colby was he knew better, and he was very mad at himself for doing it. One of the things that I think about in this is like we're talking about he doesn't have enough shots to kill the unit. Every time I make him not shoot at it to try to get some small advantage, that really increases the amount that he doesn't get to kill it by the end of the game. So I'm quite happy for him to choose not to and put all of his effort into Bellicor on turn 1. The fact that I kind of got the best of both worlds was ridiculous. From here, I wrapped his army up in combat and moved the Mortar Epitome up to him and put Be'lakor on one edge and started eating through bikes. Um, at the end of end of my turn 2, we talked about it, and he's like, so he kind of figured it out, and he's like, so you're going to win. Like this isn't going to not like this is already done. The game's finished. And I was like, yeah. Like I don't see how you get out of this. I have you locked in combat. You can fall back and shoot, but then you won't be able to shoot at anything. I have my characters all wrapped up and neatly like, and your ability to kill me is going down and down and down. Like I am going to get all of my points. Um, and then he found out that the stratagem I use in order to pass morale was not just once per game, like the book one. And he's like,
Oh,
never mind, we're done.
yeah.
uh, so
Oh
to turn
man, if it
3, we
was once
finished
per
it.
game, that would be so much worse.
It,
Your
it,
army,
would-
your army would be so much worse.
it wouldn't be an army. It's just like that wouldn't even be a thing.
Yeah,
We did it out. I got 96 points.
as you do.
Now that I'm looking at that, it should be 94. Just bad at math. Doesn't really matter. We finished that game out. What's really interesting about that game is I have it set up so that I can summon stuff as well. So I can summon 2 Poxbringers, a Changecaster, and a Herald of Slanesh, and still have about 100 total blues and pinks, or
Hmm.
blues and brims. And with him being Shadow Keepers, I summoned all of that stuff. So I've just got mortal wounds pounding in, killing out a bike and a half a turn. In
Hmm.
addition to Be'lakor still floating around killing units of bikes. Like it was just he was disappearing quickly. And I was dominating the board. Every once in a while I'd sneak out and try to like threaten to take one of his backfield objectives on top of owning the center of the table and my whole side of the table. Uh, so
Well,
it
you
was
like to play Colby
interesting.
in the first round. That's part of your.
Yeah, when we talk about his last tournament, he brought he brought this thinking, oh, there will be no hordes. I don't have to worry about it. I'm going to bring all the most powerful guns. Round 1, I'm like, hey, buddy, I got this horde for you.
That's
Last time
funny.
he came with he's trying to abuse the bodyguard rule, and I was like, great, cool. I have targeted smite, so I don't know what that means. Like I'm just
You're
apparently
just countering Colby without even knowing
yeah.
it.
That's my meta is what's Colby bringing and how do I stop it?
Well, your second opponent is this newer guy. Not very
Yeah,
good. No, I'm kidding. Your second opponent is Nick.
yeah.
So Nick, could you tell us briefly? You don't need to go into detail because they should listen to your show if they want
Mhm.
detail on your list. Anyways, give us briefly what was in your light Harlequin list.
Yeah, battalion. It's got 6 Void Weavers and 2 squads of 3. It's got 5 Star Weavers. Those are the transport boats. It's got 4 squads of 5 troops with 2 Fusion Pistol, 2 Nero Disruptor, and 3 of them have a extra special weapon and Embrace. All of them have kisses. 1 squad of 5 with just basic blades, and then I got all the characters. Got the Shadow Seer with the Mirror Architect, Solitaire with no upgrades. Oh yeah, the Shadow Seer also with the +3 in Strange Aura. I got the Troop Master with the reroll wounds and like the auto 6 charge, all that fun stuff. And then the Troop Master that auto hits and wounds on 2s.
Cool. By the way, I really liked the double Troop Master. By the way, I hadn't actually thought about doing that. I thought that was
Yeah.
cool.
What I'd like to do with this matchup, Nick, if you would,
Yeah.
is I didn't know what I was doing going into this. I took my basic secondaries, I took my position, I was like, okay, I'm gonna stand here and just I theorized in my head that I'll be fine here. I'll put my stuff down, and I can just outweigh you in bodies and play some nuanced, tricky things and steal some primary from you and put you in a spot where you can't beat me. I figured that was my path to win. I also figured that mortal wounds would be pretty good against you, so I would look at summoning my extra casters because once you enter combat with me, I can pick up 5 Harlequins. There's only 6 wounds. It's pretty quick to just be like, get out of here, right?
Mhm.
That's not how you approach this game at all, and I want to hear kind of what went on in your head when you sat down to look at my army because I think your plan was just so much stronger um, when you from the start.
Yeah, so I saw we were playing and I laughed because I'm like, "Oh man, it's this army." I've played against this army once and I've played this army once. Tanner and I were testing it back when it first came out. Although our version had like 60 bloodletters, so we only had like 200 reinforcement points for
Mhm.
pinks, not the full 800. I've also played Necrons, so I'm familiar with the chaining out to steal objectives from people. And I was like, okay, so my usual secondaries are Stranglehold, Deadly Performance, and like Retrieve Knockman Data or Mental Interrogation. I can't take the Psychic one because you'll just like deny it probably. Um, I can't take Stranglehold because your whole army is obsec if you decide to split all the horrors up. And Deadly Performance also seems pretty hard because I'm definitely not taking an objective every turn. And it's also hold 2, hold 3 mission. So I'm like, I can't sit back at all because if I sit back, Chuck can like just strangle me out of primary and I might just lose because I get a 0 on primary. So I ended up taking Engage because I'm like, Chuck can't really stop me from flying around the board, right? Your army's just like one big brick
Yeah.
of pinks. And I took no prisoners because I was like, all right, dude, if you want to summon all the pinks, I'll get 15 points. Like you could summon Soul Grinders instead, but then I think the game's way better for me.
Yeah.
And then the
I'm
last
done
one I
at
took was
that point.
R&D because I'm like, you're probably not going to stop it and at least get an 8 on it. And yeah, I basically turn 1 was like, I want to get in range to shoot all the guns without the minus to hit because the only thing I'm worried about charging me is Be'lakor, and I'll just stay away from Be'lakor.
Mhm.
And with the light stratagem and Fire and Fade, it's actually pretty easy to stay away from him. And yeah, and then I remember turn 2 was when I was like, okay, I got to get everyone out of the boats and just start shooting and punching with everything I got.
When you flew up turn 1 and just shot at me a ton, and then I kind of saw how you'd set up. You set yourself up to be like, if you want to bring Be'lakor out, I can run away and make it a long charge. I
Yeah.
also think at that point I had to do that.
Yes.
If I just left it behind the building on one flank, it'd been like, great, we're all over here, and Bellacor's not a part of this game. And honestly, every gun you put into Be'lakor was guns that weren't going into my pings.
hmm
Um, but I popped up there. You didn't bring anybody out of boats, so I didn't summon any of my guys. Um, because I think at that point you kind of showed me like, if you were willing to stay in your boats, I think I was fine, right?
Yeah.
And I went up and I grabbed your one squad of boats with the pinks and the epitome. Grabbed a little spot and was like, okay, I'm gonna hang out here, and like now you have to close combat me. When you do, I'll then summon and then try to get you. Um, that's not really how it went because then you deployed the nightmare that I didn't even know about. Death Gesture just flew right into me inside the boat and was like, I'm gonna kill a Chaos Space Marine character. And my immediate thought was like, well, he's gonna kill the other one next turn, and then I don't get any more morale benefits. So that little gap that I thought I had where you weren't gonna be able to kill me fast enough, it's about to disappear. But actually got worse than that is turn 2 that turn 3 you killed the epitome, and then you were able to get free of me. And at that point, you were done. Like the amount of damage you were putting out between being able to fall back, shoot, charge, get like just you were able to be actively in every phase was just like I'm just done. Once you killed the contorted, that was the actual key. I
Mhm.
actually think if you killed the Space Marine character, for morale, it would have been better for me. Um, because we evaporated. Yeah, and getting to do both was great, right? Like suddenly those units are killing twice as much each, so it's massive.
Mhm.
And yeah, I wasn't going to be able to really do much to the Void Reavers if you didn't let me. So the chance that like they get out and they shoot again is ridiculously good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think from there the story was kind of quick, right? You were 0, 0, 0, 12, 12 on the primary. You could see it
Yeah.
in the score where it's like, okay, my army's gone. Now Nick's just getting all his points as fast as he can.
Yeah. And then the end of game bonus too for like holding your set on
Yeah,
the board.
got a
Yeah.
ton of that. So it was you got 36 out of that primary, which I'm proud to have held you to that. But like I feel like you walked right through me, and a lot of that is on the Death Gesture.
Yes.
Now that we played it again, I think I probably put the contorted epitome in combat with your boats. But if I accidentally kill one, it's going to be the one she's in combat with, and the same thing happens, right? So maybe even I summon another contorted epitome, but I don't.
You can do
It's
that?
rough. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're not independent. They're not named characters or anything, so you can have as many
Oh,
as you
I
like.
thought that. Okay. All right. The
It's the
free
contorted epitome, but there's lots of them.
free contorted epitome list incoming.
No, they're
No,
also 210 points.
I've done this wrong. Okay, so let's move on to the next game, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So for my
And
third
I
game,
think our general rule should be that we are not going to talk a lot about Tyranids because you
yeah,
played Crusher in the third round. Leland, I'm sure it was an amazing game. His Crusher list does not exist anymore. Uh,
I'm
there
going to
you
talk about
go.
the one thing that's important for my list that comes out
Yeah,
of
do
this.
it.
It's also true with Custodes. He did not. Like, we played with the center objective, so I took Stranglehold. He did not get. He needed to get two of his big monsters on that center objective and block as much space on that objective as he could. and then make one of them objective secured. That
Mhm.
way I can like the total number of bases that I can put on the objective while in combat with him is limited, and then he counts for like, 18 wounds or whatever. That counts as number of normals. He needs that in order to keep me from getting the center objective. He didn't understand that. He put one monster on there, not two. Um, and so I flooded the objective and blocked him out of it. He had psychic ritual and stranglehold. And because I flooded that center objective and actually made it physically impossible for him to get any more than one model on it or within 6 inches of it, I skunked him out on a psychic ritual. I kept him out of his stranglehold, and that also pushed his primary down the entire time. The game was over very quickly. Um, he really wasn't aware of how my army worked, um,
Mm.
and unfortunately just walked right straight into the trap card of it. Just like, "Here, you're done."
And you're
Um,
trapped.
the game was fun. We had a great time. Like I said, Leland is always a great time. So we just, laughed and blew things up. And he tried to catch my characters, and I did a bunch of strange. Oh, and then I summoned three more blues show up, and now you can't get to them. Um, but it was all right. But he didn't have the tools, and then like I said, Crusher's dead to us anyway. So
Amusingly, and I did not catch this before. Uh, you and I played Crusher against Crusher at the same time in round 3.
yeah,
In round 4, you and Hank and I all played Custodes at the same time.
nice.
Did you realize that? I didn't
I
realize
didn't
that.
know that. I remember the Crusher thing. I didn't know that we'd also done Custodes at the same time.
Yeah, for some reason I thought I thought Lee was playing a Marine list. So um I don't know why I thought that. So you
Hmm.
played so you like to play as many of the Dark Tower guys as you
Yeah,
can at each tournament.
yeah.
And
They're my opponent.
yeah, so you had to find somebody. So you grabbed
They're a
Lee.
great game. They're a great
Yeah,
Oh
game.
yeah, they're
It's
great
it's
opponents
a
and
good way to go through a
wonderful
tournament.
humans too.
Yeah.
Wonderful humans too. In
yeah.
fact, let me just say, I have a dog with a health problem. It's very hard for my house to be empty of adults. My plans for going to the tournament fell through at the last minute, and I was at the tournament with Stephanie unable to go to work. And JT and Lee found one of their friends that I had met before, and that person agreed to come and dog sit at our house so that we could be okay for the weekend. And I don't want to call them out because I don't know if that's weird. But I appreciate them greatly, and I appreciate the Steger brothers immensely for being like, here, Colin, we solved your problem through our friend network.
Mhm.
It was just like it was the coolest community thing that happened to me in a long time because I'm literally like, do I Uber? Like, do I go
Yeah.
back home?
Are you done?
Stephanie
All right.
has to go to work. The houses can't be left empty because of the dogs. What do I do? And just it just wonderful. Just one. And the person that agreed to dog sit is someone that both Chuck and I have played before and is a wonderful opponent and a great human being. And I don't know why, but I just feel like I shouldn't call him out without him knowing that I'm going to do that. Okay, I know that the Stigers they like attention. They're fine. Okay, so Custodes. This one though different. This one Emperor's
Mhm.
Chosen,
Yep.
and it's got an Inquisitor, which I know you're a fan of the one Inquisitor being in the list. Blade Champion, Shield Captain, Trajan, and then it's the Shield Captain in armor. Is it Mister Everywhere or Mister Around the World or whatever his name is? Is that who it is?
Mr.
Yeah.
Worldwide.
Mister
Yeah.
Worldwide. Thank you. Okay. And then a unit of prosecutors, and then 3 units of Sagittarium. Oh, it's actually 4 prosecutors. And then a Contemptor, Achilles, Dreadnought. Oh, 2 of them. They're different from each other, though.
One's got the
Uh,
upgrade.
one is the
Plus
upgrade,
one attack.
okay. And then a unit of I don't know Custodes well enough to do this for you. And then a unit of 3 Praetors. 5. A unit of 5 bikes. Oh, we talked about this. 5 bikes, 2 with DACA and 3 with missiles. And
Mhm.
then a unit of 3 missile bikes.
So this game, obviously, he's Emperor's
By the way, I give
Chosen.
myself a D- for going through that list. Just so everybody's clear. I usually rock a B.
Oh,
No.
I thought we were working on a 10 scale, so my cards are going to look weird now.
Okay, that's my favorite Mitch comment in a long time. Please continue, Chuck.
I don't know if I can. All right. So with it being Emperor's Chosen, like I said, the mortal wound output from my stuff is not high enough to warrant the the summoning the characters. Right. I would rather just have them in blues and brims. So I knew I was probably going to be sticking with that. One of the things that really hit hard for Lee in this is he didn't again like he'd never experienced this army, so I told him how things worked, but he didn't bring that into a game plan of understanding of my capacity. Um, what he decided to do was take bring it down and no prisoners. So if I went soul grinders or I went horrors, he
Mhm.
was going to get points off me either way. Um, that made it very easy for me to be like, okay, I'm 100% in on. I'm going to bring in horrors. He's going to get 15 on no prisoners, and that's just fine.
Mhm.
Because I know I'm up a secondary already. His third secondary was banners. And the way I work, I don't necessarily with custodes think I'm going to be taking a banner down very often. But if he shoots at me on the first turn, I'm going to spread out and touch a bunch of objectives. So like he's not necessarily going to get his banners up. Um, I got to go first though, so I just tore off into the center of the table, touched the center objective, and just sort of threatened him. I was like, "Here I am. What are you going to do about this?" Right? Um, he took his 5-man unit of bikes with the hurricane bolters in it. He jumped them up forward and shot my pinks, and my dice went really cold. And he killed like 28 pink horrors on that first go. Which is interesting. It's bad, right? Because I don't want to be taking too much damage because he could actually break that unit at some point during the game, and I need that to at least be turn 4 when it goes.
Right.
On the other hand, I do all of a sudden have an incredibly large presence on the table. Um, he was pushed way out on my right flank with most of his Sagittarium, which are the actual champions of this match. Those guys hit with so many attacks, and they do so well, and they're great with shooting. I just basically took the other half of the board and stayed away from the Sagittarium guard, and held my center objective. He sort of realized that was a scenario, um, but he'd taken his turn and he'd set himself up.
Mhm.
What I did from there is on my turn, I fell back from those bikes because they were too close to Bellicor. So I was able to fall back, sort of take a step away, but also got me to step away from all of his Sagittarium guard so that they weren't going to charge me for another turn, and then send Bellicor in to kill a bunch of bikes. He sort of went soft and he killed 2 of them. Because of the way coherency was, I got to kill one of them with the hurricane bolters, but I also got them touched in combat with the epitome nearby and got lucky.
Mhm.
So they didn't get to leave. And at that point, the game is essentially over, right? Because Bellicor's center table, he has to deal with him now in close combat. He doesn't get a round of shooting at him with all of his stuff. And my blues are too far away to really have anything significant happen to them, right? He's going to shoot him with a Sagittarium guard, but it's not a ton. And then I flooded back onto the table after that. And what that did is there's one turn now. Like turn 2, he didn't do much to the blues, which then means that's like if I was going to break on 4, now I'm going to break on 5, or if it's going to break on 3, now I break on 4, right? That like turn taking a turn off and having Bellicor handle it is the ideal for this list.
Right.
And having him do
Right.
that plus also kill the most threatening piece really made the difference.
Mhm.
From here, he actually fought really hard uh, to push me and to push me back and take the table. He did eventually sort of break my army, but it was just too late. But he did get a couple. He got a couple of 12s there at the end, so the score was 83 to 78. Like they just squeaked it out, but it was sort of very textbook what the list wants to do versus custodes with the 4 up. If you know what I mean. But yeah, that one finished out. That brings me to my last one.
And in your last one, you played Lucas,
Yeah,
also host of the best in what's that show called? Best in Faction: The Next Generation. There you go. That was easy to say. That was really easy for me. I'm doing really great, guys. I might be falling apart. If I have a seizure, is someone going to call someone?
I'm working on
Okay.
my cards right now for that one.
Because the words are getting harder and harder. He's okay. Thank you, though. Sorry, we're having a dog issue here. Okay, so Lucas, and he had orcs,
hmm
and you had recently helped him make his list better against you.
Yes, we sat down when we came out for the Battle of the Generations, and I said, "Hey, I've been playing against a guy with orcs, and this is what he did to his list, and it makes it way stronger." And then he brought that, and I was like, "Whoops! Look what I've done myself."
So he had. Do you want to go through this, or do you? I'll go through it. It's fine.
Okay.
You probably don't have it in front of you. So it's a Goth. It's all Goths, and he's got a Big Mac, and then he's got Gaz, and he's got 10 Beast Negaboys, and then he's got a unit of Megadobs that is hard for me to read because the battle scribe 6 of them, 6 Megadobs, and they've got custom shooter and a Power Claw. I don't know why I like the Mega Knobs so much. I don't even know if they're as good as I like them. I just have an affection for them in every list that I see for orcs. I don't. Is that Nick? Are you at all with me on this? Like, I just the Mega Knobs, man.
They're cool. They're good. They're cool.
Yeah, they're cool and good,
I feel like
and
when they're good, orcs are more interesting.
they're
So
also
that,
only
that's
30
part of
points
it.
a model.
Yeah, they went
Yeah.
down 5 points.
They're
Not
cheaper
very
than a
cool.
Shining Spear. That's cool, man.
Yeah, they move 5 or 6.
It's different than
Yeah.
a Shining Spear,
They
but
waddle
Shining Spears are
around.
a thing that's in my brain right now. I'm sorry. And then 5 Squig Hog Boys, maybe 4, hard to say, Battle Scribe.
I think
2
it's
Battle
4.
Wagons. And then he's got another detachment that's got a War Boss on bike and a Weird Boy, and then another 10 Beast Mega Boys. And then he's got 2 more units of Mega Knobs. These are each units, they have 5 of them with the same gear. And then he's got 2 units of 4 Squig Boy. Oh, so it's all units of 4 Squig Boys, it looks like.
Mhm.
Squig Hog Boys. And then a Battle Wagon. There you go.
Oh, no.
One
You
more
got to get
thing.
that last
2 more
attachment in
things.
there. Pretty important.
No, I got it.
1 Supreme Command with Gazgul.
No, I have Gazgul in it.
Did you hit it? Okay, I thought you missed it.
He's just an HQ in the first attachment.
Oh, did you do it that way? Okay.
And Makari, right?
Yeah, Makari.
I didn't
All right.
see Makari.
So
Oh, I do see Makari now. Sorry, I did miss Makari. Nick's
a
right
bunch.
about what I missed, and Chuck is wrong about what I missed.
Oh gosh, that hurts. um,
I did miss something though.
the person I've been practicing this list with, because I kind of started playing this just as like, hey, my buddy wanted to get caught up and like he hadn't been playing at all during quarantine. He was like, hey, I want to play some games. We can like stream and like just kind of bring something that's a little less hard hitting so I can kind of get knock the rust off a little bit. So I brought this list and I've been playing it and falling more and more in love with it. Um, so I've been playing it mostly against orcs. And I'll tell you, when Beast Nega boys, who happen to be Goths, charge in with Gaz nearby, they are hitting on twos re-rolling. Their systems explode, so they're more than 100% on hitting you. And then they happen to go to strength 6, which is twos to wound. One unit goes in and just destroys the pinks. The fact that he has 2 units to do that with, and you can stage them. He can do 1 on the first turn of the Wa and 1 on the second turn of the Wa, and they wreck.
How many
And I
attacks do
know
those
that.
units have, Chuck?
What's that?
How many attacks do those units have?
Let's see here. They are 2 base plus a close combat weapon, and if they're in the Wa, they get another +1, and then if they get Warpath on them, they get another +1. So 5 each.
So it's 50 attacks, 50 hits. Not really 50 hits, but let's say
No, it's
50
like
hits.
it's closer to 55, 60 hits.
Oh, sorry. 60 hits, and then he wins on twos with no rerolls.
Yeah.
So and then so let's say that let's say he does badly.
Yeah.
And he only gets 56. No, that's not the math. He only gets 50. He only gets 50 wounds.
That's
Right.
25 dead pinks.
Okay. Yeah, I see the problem.
Yeah, and
From
that's a
one
very
unit.
small investment for him. So I know this. Um, so I let him take no prisoners because I know what has to happen here. So I summon 5 soul grinders on the first turn and just start shooting him.
Hold on. Go back. Say it again more slowly. What did you summon on the first turn, Chuck?
5 soul grinders.
Okay.
Love it.
What
Love
about
it
the
so
huge
much.
amount of
Such
audience
great
that doesn't
picture.
have any idea what that is, Chuck? What are you
Well,
going to say to those people?
it's a lot like a defiler. Oh, but that's probably not helping.
Yeah. Could you compare it to a rule set people play with?
Imagine if a Redemptor Dreadnought
I'm with you
sort of
so far.
sucked,
Oh,
but
okay.
also had this strange, crazy footprint where its legs are going in every direction and it doesn't have a base.
Okay.
It's like that, but you have to really think about how much it sucks more. Uh,
Okay.
but it is pretty good at shooting and killing the Squig Riders.
All right.
So the first order of business is I run the pinks out so that they can be a screen for my soul grinders, and I dump shooting into Squig Boys. And I managed to pick up most of them on the first turn. I think I had to picked up no, I picked up 5 on the first turn, and then I picked up the rest of them the second run. What's important about this is I get the pinks out front, so the only thing he can do is send in something to kill the pinks off, right? Lucas is, unfortunately for me, a very careful and considered opponent, so he thought about it, and he sent in just 1 unit of Beast Nega Boys. Uh, but they managed to kill 28 of the pinks because he also activated the strat for exploding 5s and 6s to get that
Okay.
math as close as he could to wiping the unit.
Wow.
That leaves my soul grinders facing his army. So they shot again. So I said, picked up the rest of the Squid Cowboys and then just charged into the Beast Boys because he killed my screen with the Beast Boys and then formed a screen of his own with his Beast Boys. And then from there, we get into like a pitched battle where I'm forcing his army into my 2 Nurgle Soul Grinders. So this is a T7, 14 wound, 5 up invuln, 5 up feel no pain. And I'm just forcing him into this with like, he doesn't have anything that really effectively kills it other than Gaz. And Bellicor sneaked around the side being like, hey, Gaz, what's up, buddy? Do you want to do a thing? And Gaz decided he did not want to. So I sent Bellicor off to a corner, wiped out the stuff that he had on his objectives over there so that he stopped getting good primary. But I kept Bellicor within range of the Forbidden Gem. So when he brought Gaz around to punish me for that, I got a chance. And so I turned Gaz off on his round of combat there. So he didn't attack Bellicor. And then Bellicor hit him. And then on my turn, the Epitome and Bellicor put everything they could mortal-wise into Gaz. And then Bellicor said, you fight last. And then Bellicor
Uh-oh.
struck him down without him ever swinging a blow in the game.
Oh, Lucas must have been so sad.
He took a little break. He was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe I forgot that." And he had to step away for a minute. But he didn't like he did the right thing. He stepped away, figured himself out, and came back and pushed. In the end, he has so many attacks, and they're like the Soul Grinders don't do much in close combat to Mega Knobs. And I needed Bellicor to do more to get me out of that, but I can't have Bellicor in all places at all times. So in the end, he managed to beat me 63-49. But that's a really, really
That's
close
still low
game.
scoring.
Close.
Oh yeah, incredibly low scoring, but also like really close. There was several times where we could have easily flipped 10 to 15 points one way or another. And so I think the game was well within reach. Uh, Fortunately, all of my soul grinders came in on the first turn. It is a roll, and if I'd failed one of those and not gotten a soul grinder, I think that would have been bad.
Hmm.
But on the other end, I think if I had summoned Zeech Flamers instead of the Soul Grinder, they would have done more work over the course of time. And I also think Bloodletters might have been really worthwhile. So I think I could have gone down a
Yeah.
few Soul Grinders and brought in some more AP and some more mortal wounds to help me with the Mega Knob. So
This is the first tournament Chuck has ever had a cart for.
oh yeah,
Pushing his cart around because, like, I love
But-
the idea that Chuck has to bring all the different variances of this list that he might summon.
I made
And I
so-
wanted you to put it all on your display board, but you didn't.
Oh no. Also, one of the things that I think if anyone was looking for doing this kind of list is I went through and made packages of things that I would summon for different scenarios. So that you don't have to end up doing all of that math while I'm at the table, right? Like if I know if I'm going to do summon all of my psychers, I have it written out. This is how many psychers I get, and then here's my blues and my brims. In addition to that, having all of the blues and brims painted. So when I decide to go blues and brims, I just pull out the tray and say, "This is how many I have," and I just take them out. And then when they die, they go in a different place. Makes it play faster. You don't have to keep an accounting going. Makes the game just a lot more fun.
All right. Is it Colin time? I think it's Colin time.
Yeah. So what
All
did Eldar do?
Oh man. So, okay. So first of all, my love for Craftworld Eldar is pure and deep, and this is the most fun I've had with Eldar in an incredibly long time. So if I get excited, it is not because I'm super excited that I smashed people. It is actually because the list is incredibly fun to play. It was more fun than winning with Ultra Memes. It was more fun than winning with Drukhari. It was just very fun to win with this list. Here's how it went down. My buddy Hank and I, who play a lot of 40K with each other, both wanted to play Craftworld Eldar. We both wanted to be competitive. We both were worried about Harlequins, so we spent a fairly ridiculous amount of time building a Craftworld Eldar list to deal with Harlequins, which is why Nick is here, because the end of this story being that I get to play not only Harlequins, but one of the best players in our area playing Harlequins. It's the perfect thing. So if you want to hear a lot about the story of Hank and I doing this, there's actually a new show on YouTube on our network called Best in Tabletop Tournament Trophy Triumphs. That's right. And it is our good buddy Billy who is a wonderful learner. He asks really good questions. He's a great listener. And there's a 20 or so minutes that's kind of the story of us making the list and our goals. And then there's, for those of you that are our wonderful YouTube members, there's a hour-long one where Hank and I just nerd about Eldar. Just this and then that and how this works and this over here. Like all of that, just deep Eldar knowledge is in there ready for you guys. And all you got to do is be a member. It's almost like I want you to be a member. It's almost like I'm going to just keep putting really cool content there and saying, I don't know, guys, there's just more and more content there all the time. It's almost like that. So, here's what happened. We built the list. It's super great. And Harlequins were mined across the whole thing. Here's the list. It's all Elfway and it's double patrol, which is incredibly common for Craftworld Eldar. And it starts off with Eldrad. Big debate between Hank and I, and also a little bit in the Warhammer community about whether or not Eldrad is good. Reroll casts, I will pay a lot for. Basically, Eldrad is 45 points more than, actually 55 points more than a Farseer on foot. He's only 25 points more than a Farseer Skyrunner. That's not really a good comparison because the Skyrunner has more shooting and is so crazy fast. He's actually he's more than 50% more expensive than a Farseer. But in my mind, I have limited HQ slots, and I want the extra power that Eldrad has because he gets 3 powers and 3 casts, and reroll casts. So basically, I'm getting the psychic output of 1.5 Farseers, for about 1.5 the cost of a Farseer, and I get free rerolls for free. And Fate dice can help you with psychic powers, but your Fate dice in this list are going somewhere else whenever you can. So I want Eldrad to be able to reroll his casts. And what is that third cast in this list that I give him that I wouldn't have otherwise? It's the CP power, which he passed every single turn of the tournament. So over the course of the tournament, Eldrad gave me 25 command points. Is he worth the points over a Farseer? I'm going to go with yes. Maybe not 25 because I think that he died in my game with Nick. But my point is still valid. Either Eldrad died or the Farseer died or something. But yes.
An Ethereal's 85 points. So the fact that you're just tacking on an Ethereal.
Yeah.
For less points seems fine.
And also his transhuman mattered as well for me in the game, in the tournament. Like he survived things that a Farseer shouldn't survive because he has transhuman. Okay, and then I have a Farseer Skyrunner. That dude's rocking the Ghost Helm. That Ghost Helm is so dope. It makes you undeniable on a 9 to cast, and an additional power. His additional power is Ghost Walk. You only need it like once a game, so you don't want it to take up a full power slot on the dude. Ghost Walk with the auto 6 to charge means that you auto nail a 9-inch charge out of Deep Strike. That's a core mechanic of this list. The other 2 powers he has that he uses basically every turn is Will of Assyrian, maybe the best Eldar power in the game. Much
Probably
better
one of the
than
best powers in the game.
It might be the best power in the game. It does 2 things. It says you can shoot. You are OBSEC and you can shoot in action. Right, those 2 things. Do you have that right? Yeah, shoot in action. Yes. Sometimes I get mildly confused on just how powerful it is. So giving anything core in the Eldar Army OBSEC is a big part of how this list functions. So we'll talk about that. And then his other power is, Eldrad has Faithful Divergence, Guide, and Fortune. Guide and Fortune are both powers that are very comfortable to be cast from my deployment zone. So the fact that Eldrad is a slow boy isn't as big of a deal. Fast Boy, though, has Doom, which has to be cast on them, not on me, like the other powers. And Will of Assyrian, because I want to be able to OBSEC anywhere on the table. All right. Then I've got 2 units of Rangers. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's just do the 2 patrols together. My third HQ is Baharoth. Baharoth we've talked about a lot on the podcast. He goes wherever Baharoth wants to go. He's incredibly durable. He does reasonable damage. Interestingly, Baharoth is, while incredible, my takeaway from this tournament, and Hank agrees, is that Baharoth does abusive and offensive things against armies that we're already going to beat. And he's actually not as important in the actual hard games. So because the really good armies in the game have better answers for him than the bad armies in the game. So we're starting to try other HQs in that spot, but I still love him, and I made a special Kit Bash one, and I had a great time with him. Then I have 2 units of Rangers. Rangers are great. I don't shoot with them ever. They are doing actions basically 100% of the time. Then I have a unit of 10 Dire Avengers with no upgrades, just the normal double gun on the leader. Then my favorite dude, who I called Steve through the whole tournament. Steve's a warlock on a bike. He's 60 points with the relic bike of OBSEC. That means that when Steve decides he would like to advance, he goes 26 inches. I gave Steve +1 to wound as a power, but +1 to wound was pretty much for the Shining Spears. I didn't ever use it like the whole tournament because this dude smiting at whatever angle I want is amazing. At 20, a guy who goes 26 inches and smites something is valuable. More valuable than that is he psychic interrogated basically the whole tournament because in Ulthway, your caster's first cast is +1 to cast. Steve only has one cast. Steve doesn't have anything more important to do. So Steve is going to move 26 inches and be 24 inches from a character and interrogate every turn until I decide to be sassy and make him go 26 and be OBSEC on something and take away an objective for the turn and then die. I believe that Steve is auto-include in 100% of Craftworld Eldar lists. There is no argument. This is how strongly I feel about this. 60 points and 1 CP if it's not your only relic. Guys, come on. Give him whatever power you want. I don't care. Amazing. And psychic interrogation with +1 to cast every turn. Come on. Come on. So good. Love Steve. Steve for life. And then the elites from the other patrol are 2 units of Howling Banshees. They're both 5s. 1 unit of Howling Banshees has the Exarch power that on a 2-up you do a mortal wound on the way in. And then the relic where on a 2-up you do D3 +1 mortals on the way in. So you roll 2 2-ups and you hopefully do D3 +2 mortals on your way into the charge. Pretty darn neat. That relic is probably one of the best Exarch ones. D3 +1 mortals for half a CP is basically the math there. Then the other thing is the other unit has the 2 damaged lady. So both leader ladies have 10 attacks, but one of them's doing mortals on the way in and the other one's doing 2 damage a hit. Banshees, I think, are an auto-include for Eldar. The no Overwatch on the charge is so valuable right now, especially into Tau. And then they make everything they're touching fight last. It's not just, they don't go in and declare you fight last. They're a 5-lady unit that stretches out and everything they touch fights last, which means you can charge with things that aren't normally good in combat, like Dire Avengers or Warp Spiders or anything else that you have can go in because they can all attack the thing with immunity before the thing ever gets to fight. Then when the Banshees do fight, they do a lot of damage. They're -1 to hit with a 5-up invul, which is weirdly durable in the game right now. They usually die if things focus them, but if you don't give them enough attention, you end up with a 3-wound character wandering around the table. Like the Exarchs being so good, you end up with this 3-wound character that does 10 attacks wandering around the table. So good. My fast attacks were 5 Shining Spears. I did the 2-ups to hit on the charge. Shining Spears, I think, are amazing in the game right now. They were a huge MVP for the tournament. I was allowed to play with them on the smaller flight stands that they've been on forever because I actually didn't know, and I apologize. Nick and I have talked about it in our game. We do not believe that the larger flight stands mattered because the Shining Spears basically hid behind a wall and then were shot at and attacked the whole game. So it wasn't a big deal. But Jason, the tournament organizer, said he's been allowing people to play on the smaller stands. So it was fine. But just full disclaimer, in the future, I'll need to put them on the larger stands, and I don't believe that I like them as much when their footprint gets bigger. Because Eldar footprint, it's like you're running a retail organization and you're doing plano for your shelves. You only get a certain amount of footprint in an Eldar army, at which point you can't play with anything else. So the fact that their footprint's bigger is really disadvantageous. And then I had a unit of 5, but they're cool because they can auto hit a 9-inch charge. They wreck things in combat. Their shooting's great. They're fast. They're just wonderful. They're durable now with their -1 to hit being passively on them rather than you having to cast it on them every turn or doing LFR or whatever. All good. Then I did 5 Warp Spiders with the double gun Exarch that gets +1 shots on the way in, which makes that unit come in from Deep Strike and do 66 +6 shots. I think Warp Spiders are one of the best things in the book. They are expensive, but now that I've played an entire tournament with them, I think 2 units is probably what I'll run. Strength 6 AP2 1 damage shooting, or is it AP1? AP2, yeah. Strength 6 AP2 1 damage blast is really, really good. They can drop in and kill anything in a Harlequin army that they can, especially now that the range aura is not there anymore. They can drop in and just wreck Harlequins. They can do actions off in the corner if you need them to. They're very fast, so you can move them around as you need. They're a 3-up, 5-up, so you put them in cover. They're a 2-up, 5-up. Like it's just they're just a really solid, heavy hitting piece. In fact, we'll talk when we get to my game with Nick that they were really good in the game with Nick. Like they didn't ever do anything offensive, but they solidly did effort every turn. And Nick couldn't ever deal with them because there were so many other things happening, which is all right. And then I had 2 units of 3 Shadow Weavers for indirect fire. That was specifically in the list for Tau. And Harlequins as well. Once the Harlequins are out of the boats, you need to kill all their dudes because their dudes are actually the guys playing the mission. And so if you can kill all their dudes, which I didn't do a good job with against you, Nick. I should have focused it more. But if you kill all the dudes, that's a big part of how you kill Harlequins. But also you want to shoot a ton of small indirect fire before indirect fire got nerfed. You want to shoot a bunch of bulk small arms fire into Tau so that all the drones get shot off before you shoot the fire prisms in, and that's the rest of the list is 2 fire prisms, both with vectored engines. Fire prisms are the bonker sauce of this list. Because of how fate dice work, this is the standard operating procedure of the fire prism. What fire prism number 1 pokes just a 1/4 inch of his barrel out and says, I would like to shoot those 3 Void Weavers. I am going to roll my 7 Elfway fate dice with 2 rerolls where I'm keeping 5. I'm going to try to get 2 hits from that fate dice roll. So I'm going to hit twice. I'm going to roll 2 more dice. One of those is going to hit. I've now hit 3 times. I'm now going to slow roll these. I'm going to wound on 2s. I have an Elfway reroll to reroll if I do get a 1. Ideally, I'll only get 1 here. Now I've rolled 3 2s. I go into damage. I have to roll a 5 on 3d3 damage to kill a boat. If I fail, I have a CP reroll still waiting. I will tell you that I've now done this procedure 5 times in game, and I've killed 15 of 15 Void Weavers. So that is why Fire Prisms made their way into the list initially. Then after it does that, I don't spend LFR on it because CP is valuable in the Craftworld Eldar list. It has vectored engines. It battle focuses back 1 inch. I only had to expose myself a 1/2 inch, if even, like to see. So going back an inch is quite a bit. You're going to roll a higher number. It has fly. You end up going back behind the wall, basically. The next turn, the other Fire Prism pokes out. He shoots something and uses the strat, and then he battle focuses back. They both have vectored engines. It's now the 3rd turn of the game before you needed lightning fast reflexes. So the vectored engine upgrades are effectively buying CP pre-game.
So
That's
good.
what they are. Mitch was going to say that, I think.
Yeah.
It's 10 points gets you 2 CP. Is basically what that is.
Yeah.
It also means that you can also LFR, or excuse me, you can also fire and fade something else on the same turn that you do that, and that's a really big deal.
Super deep blocks.
Yeah, so there's a lot of value there. They're good in every matchup that I've seen so far. The ignoring invols is crazy, and if you aren't ignoring invols, fine. They're shooting still very reasonable with fake dice. So that's the list. The general concept is you put OBSEC on a thing and you throw it across the table. Banshees are a great example of what does this really well. I'm really fast. I'm punching and killing you in combat. It's a trade we're normally making, but hey, I'm OBSEC, so at least I also stole your objective. It uses the Rangers in Deep Strike primarily to do secondaries. It does Psychic Interrogation incredibly well. And while it's playing the mission phenomenally well, it is absolutely an offensive amount of output, which I think Nick in my game shows more than anything. So we'll talk about that. Nick and I talked about it actually after the game, that there's a moment where I don't have very much stuff and it still just goes and just wrecks the Harlequins. Okay, so I'm going to talk. That was a lot, and I know, and I appreciate you guys, but I just covered all of the things that people ask me. So that's all the things people ask me. Now I'm going to go through the games. My very first game and my very last game are the most interesting games. My first game is Max, Nick's buddy that got into 40K with him. I had never played him. He's an amazing human. I was so excited to play him. Nick, do you want to read Max's list to me? Do you know it well? Do you have it in front of you there? Someone want to?
Yeah.
I've got it right here.
Oh, check
Oh,
it
yeah.
out. So I would love it if
Yeah.
somebody would abbreviate people's lists for me. That would be wonderful.
So it's a Borkane list. He's running a Crisis Suit Cold Star Commander. Um, he's got the high outburst spread cannon. He's got the pulse rifles. Um, let's see here, and then he's got ethereal. He's just got him set up for on the hover drone so he can fly, mostly just not to get wrapped and to make sure he can stay safe. And he's got a squad of 10 breachers. For his first battle suit unit, it's got. Sorry, I have a hard time with this too. I think it's 3 crisis suits. They're all rocking all the plasma rifles and a shield
Mhm.
generator on one of them,
Yep.
and stim injectors on that guy with a flamer. So they each have a flamer, so they're hard to charge. They're very hard to shoot. Like this is just a massive problem to kill. From there, he also has a crisis suit team. It's another 3-man. This is all the airburst fragmentation grenades,
hmm
and then velocity trackers, which I think that's the +1 to hit versus flying, or did
Yes.
that change?
Mhm.
Yeah.
+1 to hit versus fly,
Yeah.
and his entire list has it basically because he's prepped for Harlequins.
I see. That makes sense.
Yeah. So
Um,
you don't need to say it over and over again. Everything has it
yeah.
because it's a big deal against me as well.
From there, he's got a Riptide with plasma rifles, ion accelerator, shield missile drones, target lock, and velocity tracker.
hmm
Um, as for his next attachment, he's got a commander in Forcer battlesuit. This guy has all the cyclic ion. Um, and I think this is the guy who has, the thermotronic projector. So this
hmm
is the extremely punchy uh, Tau guy who makes my Chaos Space Marines all feel sad about themselves. Another 10-man breachers.
I find him offensive, by the way.
I do too.
Like Tau Commander who shoots amazing and is amazing in combat makes me mad. I didn't know he existed when I went into this game, and he did things, and the whole time I'm just like, I don't like you. You shouldn't exist. This isn't okay. I'm playing Eldar. I don't have anything that does this in combat. What you're doing.
For his next Crisis Suit blob, he's got a 6-man where he's got plasma rifles on everybody, flamers on people, because flamers are great in Borkane, a couple shield generators, and then he also comes with 4 shield drones who have shield generators. Beyond that, he has 3 stealth suits to threaten, I'm assuming, first turn deep strikes. They have the Hoping Beacon. And then lastly, he has 2 1-man broadside units with smart missile systems and rail rifles and velocity trackers.
Yeah. So this was like, I like when you drop me into a tournament and I play against something I know really well in the first round. I want to get comfortable. And I had not played against Suit Tau. We had talked about it in the content that we made for the network leading up to it. Like I legitimately have played uh, uh, not even remotely against this. And so Max was very patient with me, and he walked me through the whole army and explained it all to me. And I asked tons of questions. Probably why our game went into lunch. Um, but he was very kind and very patient. Similarly, he had not played against the new Craftworld Eldar, so then I took the same and I went through and the way that we do this, if you guys were to listen in, and by the way, we have the idea of filming a tournament for all of the best in tabletop guys are at, not just like our games, but like this sort of stuff, like the how we interact before the game and what we talk about.
Mhm.
So basically, I was walking him through my list, but I was telling him everything. I wasn't leaving gotchas in there. I wasn't leaving secrets. And if something is a gotcha, I was making it really clear. Hey, you need to know these warp spiders that when they come in, this is an offensive amount of output. Like you need to know that. So we went through all of that. We got set up. It was Hammer and Anvil. I think it's the one where you get 3 for holding the middle objective, but I'm noticing now that I didn't write down what mission we were playing on my score sheet, so that's a good lesson
I
for
think it was
future
the
Colin.
scouring round
Oh, it
1.
was the scouring. You're right. It was the scouring. So we did player place terrain. It went pretty well. I identified that I could mostly hide everything from him, even the fire prisms, so that if I went second, it wouldn't be the end of the world. I would take some indirect fire. I deep struck the shining spears. I deep struck the warp spiders. I put the dire avengers for one in deep strike as well. I think I did the 1 CP deep strike anywhere for them. I put my rangers on the table out in no man's land, basically to try to push back his stealth suits. He still found a good place for his stealth suits and said, "Hey, you need to know that I can drop my crisis suits right here." And I said, "Oh yeah, I need to know that." And then I forgot that existed. because it was just too much information that I was trying to learn. Like it was just too much. And so I got myself all deployed and had to decide if I should phantasm the fire prisms. So he got first turn. Do I phantasm the fire prisms? I deep struck the Rangers. I didn't put them out in the field. I wish I had. That's right. So I had to decide if I wanted to phantasm, and I decided that I wanted CP, and I wanted him to drop his crisis bomb right there and get shots at a fire prism. And I was going to use some 6s on fate dice to get that fire prism to live with a couple wounds left. And that way I can still strat, and I can strat and kill those crisis suits. And they'll be so close to me, I can banshee them. I basically can get rid of that. And the worst trade from this is I lose my fire prism. But the ideal scenario is I'll get some fate dice that will help me, and the fire prisms will live. That fire prism will live with a few wounds left, which is enough for it to be able to strat next turn. That was the plan. Okay. Unfortunately for me, I rolled no fate, and I rolled no fate saves because you have to phantasm before you see your dice. So I rolled my dice and I got no saves. In fact, I got no saves for the first 3 turns of this game from fate dice. It was really bad. So turn 1, and I've already decided to phantasm. I can't phantasm after I see my fate dice. So I'm sitting here and I've got this fire prism, and he drops his suits in, and they obliterate that flipping fire prism. It has no shot. It doesn't even come close to living. That was not probably the right plan in retrospect. If I simply, and the other fire prism doesn't do anything of significance on the first turn. I think if I phantasm them up into the sky and I bring them in 2 and use the strat, I at least get to mess up a suit unit whose drones I've systematically shot off. I think that would have been way better than what I actually did, which was got very little value. I got very, very little value out of the fire prisms in this game. If you have the fire prisms on the strat, you can really wreck some suits. So, okay. So I took Strangle, the Ranger strat secondary, and Psychic Interrogation. He took Banners, Strangle, and Grind Them Down. Banners is awful against Eldar. So as soon as he took that, I decided that my game plan was to throw little annoying things at objectives all game and get as much points as I can and just try to have the fight, right? Try to go blow for blow, see if I can get the knockout. But if I can't get the knockout, make sure, like, I don't know if my offensive output is going to kill him faster or if his offensive output is going to kill me faster. I don't have the rep. I feel like it's close. So my thought is I want to make sure I'm playing the mission while I do that. And I did a good job of that. I psychic interrogated all 4 of the first 4 turns. And I got the Ranger secondary for 4 consecutive turns as well to max that. And I also got Strangle 3 or 4 turns as well. So I did a really good job on the mission while he absolutely pummeled me. Almost everything died. I had no appreciation for the turns where the first suit you have to go through either has a 2-up, 5-up or a 4-up, 5-up. Good Lord, that's gross. And he did a great job of interweaving the units so that even after I shot all the drones off of a unit, he could still use the drone strat and grab the drone from another unit. That was really smart. He effectively fire and faded indirect fire people close enough to shoot me and then back them off, when my whole plan was to put my indirect fire, which is much, much longer range. I put my indirect fire farther back so he'd have to move forward and then I could get to him. It was all about me trying to get the Tau to put themselves in positions where I could basically take care of that piece. And by the end of the game, he simply had a lot more stuff alive than I did. But the things that got him were like Rangers coming in from deep strike and moving into his deployment zone and hiding back there so that he has to put indirect fire into them. And I LFR'd 1 unit of them 1 turn, and he tried to shoot them on 5s, and 2 Rangers lived. What are you going to do? Those 2 Rangers are going to get 4 points next turn because of the Ranger secondary, where they action in the back of your deployment zone. So I did the thing I do to Custodes, where I spread out and made it hard to deal with everything while getting the points. And there were things like Howling Banshees getting OBSEC and running across the table, and they didn't kill a suit, but they killed all the drones off that unit, and they were OBSEC on the objective, stealing it for the turn. So his primary went none. He got none on 2, and then he got 12, and then 8, and then 4. And I got 8, and then 4, and then 8. But I also got the middle 3 times for 3. So I strangled more than him. His banners take was terrible. He got 4 points on banners. He was only able to get a banner up for a turn on one objective because I used obsec and speed to just eliminate it off the other objectives. So he just didn't get any banners points. I don't think banners is particularly good right now in 9th edition. It's just as an aside. What?
Do you mean for the scouring you hit the button 3 times? Like the scanning?
Sorry, that's what I meant. Yes, I hit the
Okay.
button 3 times.
Okay, I was like
I got confused with all mission.
The
Well, thank you for
scanning.
that.
Yeah.
But the banners, I think banners is really rough right now. There's the objectives in general are closer together than they were before, and armies are faster. And the things that are good right now,
Mhm.
Harlequins, Craftworld Eldar, Tau, are all very fast. So like, it's really a rough time to try to be like, this is my objective, and it just didn't work for him at all. Grind them down was also really bad because the way I play Eldar, I'm probably going to have one go turn where you're going to kill half my army. And you were absolutely going to grind me that turn. Like, Chuck, you've seen this, right? Like,
Yeah.
I am almost always poke, 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 slam. Did it work? Right? It's almost always how I play Eldar. So, yeah.
I tend to think that grind is sort of a trap. It forces you into killing things that you know to get points as opposed to killing things to get progress.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
so even when it's working, it's causing you problems. So
Right. Right. So if you look at how this game ended up, at the end of the game, I had 3 Shadow Weavers in the corner of the table. I had a Farseer Skyrunner wandering around, and that was pretty much my army. I think I had 2 Rangers doing the Ranger action in his deployment zone. That was pretty much my army on the final turn of the game. And he had the stupid melee suit commander was still alive. He had a unit of 3 suits still wandering around killing things. He had one broadside still alive. Like he really had stuff. But in the end, I got 29 primary to his 24 because obsec and speed. And in the end, I got 37 secondary to 16 because I picked better secondaries and my army did them well. And that is what people are completely missing from the Craftworld Eldar Codex that I'm trying to emphasize. Yes, it shoots well. Yes, it's durable. It plays the mission bonkers. Like it is really, really good at playing the mission. And if you can play the mission while you're obliterating someone, that is very hard to deal with. Because eventually, even if you lose your aggressiveness and you get pushed back, you're so far ahead on points it doesn't matter. And I know that I said that out loud. Is that what Harlequins felt like this weekend, Nick, or did no one ever kill you hard enough to see that? That you were getting so many points while hitting them so hard that even if they started pushing you back, there was never going to be time.
Yeah,
that-
their secondary game plays well into their game plan, which is basically maybe play somewhat passive turn 1 or rush turn 1. I mean, the game plan is basically like shoot them to death, punch them to death. You take Stranglehold, which is basically control the board, which is really easy because you're killing them off objectives, and you
'cause you're
take Deadly
aggressive.
Performance, which is also kill 2 units in shooting and take an objective you didn't have. So it's basically each turn you just pick an objective that you want and take it.
Yeah.
And like maybe
exactly.
yeah, and I mean they're not really pushing you back either because they're not killing you. So
Yeah. So very similar.
yeah.
Okay, so my second game, we're not going to go through the list, and here's why. I played Marty. Marty is a great guy. He's newer to competitive 40K, and he was playing the Elder Alarm models that he literally could get. So his list was simply not as optimized as mine. And I have, also the Eldar experience gap there was massive. So I tried to help as much as I could. I will tell you the one thing that I did in that game that I really, really liked. In player placed, I put a forest in the back right corner. It was Dawn of War. I did a forest in the back right corner, and then up from it a certain amount that'll make sense in a second. I put a ruin, okay, but out of my deployment zone. And what I did is I couldn't fit the wave serpent hiding with everything else. So he's got 2 fire prisms. I have 2 fire prisms. So I put the wave serpent touching the forest as far forward in my deployment zone as I could. And the plan was on his first turn, he will shoot that wave serpent. And when he does, it very well might not die, depending on his fate die situation, because he's going to hit it on 4s. He's going to wound it on 4s because it's got transhuman. I won't get a save because he'll do the ignore invul strat, but then he still has to do 13 wounds on 3d3 damage. So he's going to probably need to get, realistically, he could need to get 3 hits through, which is just wildly unlikely, right? And if he does get them through, he'll then hopefully his indirect fire, which he only had one night spinner, hopefully his indirect fire is already shot. The banshees will then get out 3 inches forward into the terrain that I had already placed for them. So like the player placed terrain not in my deployment zone is like set up perfectly for the banshees to be like, oh crap, our serpent died. Good news, we got our 3 inches of extra movement anyways. And he did on the first. He did get first. He did get first turn, and he did shoot the wave serpent, and he did 0 damage to it. It just is what it is. I think he might have gotten 1 hit through on it. And then basically because of that, the banshees just flew across the table and wrecked him. While I killed his night spinner first, by the way. I didn't kill his fire prisms first, because once your indirect fire is dead, now I can play Eldar all that I want. I can now out Eldar you for the rest of the day because you don't have indirect fire. So great game against Marty, but there's not a lot of learnings there just because of the skill gap, and not to anything bad about Marty. My third game I played against Crusher, Ryan Len, who I've played a lot. Crusher, he brought a Flyrant, he brought Swarm Lord, he had 2 Barbed Hierodules, he had 2 Harpies, he had a Daimacharon. He had 3 Warriors, 6 Hive Guard. We were doing diagonal deployment from each other. I put my Shadow Weavers so far away from where the Hive Guard had to be. He put the piece of terrain down that the Hive Guard were obviously going to be behind, and I then put a Shadow Weaver hiding spot slightly out of range of Hive Guard from that, but in range of Shadow Weavers. On the first turn of the game, my Shadow Weavers picked up 4 Hive Guard. So, but also on the first turn of the game, my Fire Prisms did 27 damage to a Barbed Hierodual. So like, there's no game there. That list is gone. But double Fire Prism with Battle Focus BS, there's no, that army doesn't do anything. It's going to kill a big bug a turn, and you simply, and that from just the 340 points, that's the 2 Fire Prisms, while the rest of the army, the Shining Spears, the Warp Spiders, Baharoth, everything is so good at just doing raw damage to a single target. It just doesn't. Even the Dire Avengers with Guide and Doom just easily picked up a Harpy. They just didn't even care. So the game did not go well for the Crusher. Ryan was a good sport about it. The next morning, I played Tanner, who I've never played before. And by the way, if you're keeping track of the competitive path, my competitive journey, I've now played, at the end of day 1, I've now played Tau, Crusher, and Craftworld Eldar, and I'm going to continue on into Custodes on Sunday morning. This is not an easy path. This is showing off the power of the list Hank and I made. By the way, Hank went 4-1, losing only to probably the best Custodes player in our area. So like, yeah, this list real good, folks. I played Tanner. Tanner's list was I'll just do it quickly, and then we'll spend all the rest of our time, which we've been talking forever, but we'll spend the rest of our time on my game with Nick because that's where all the interesting is. So Tanner had Shield Captain, Blade Champion, had Trajan, had Shield Captain on bike. He was the -1 attack aura, folks, right?
Yeah, I get it for you.
Okay, that's great.
Troops wise, he had a 3-man Custodians.
Which type is he again? Which type of Custodian?
He's Shadow Keepers.
Okay.
He had three guys with shields, 2 3-man Sagittarium Guard. He had 1 squad, 2 squads of Wardens, and then he had 3-man Praetors with Salvo Launchers. You were saying he had a -1, did like the -1 to hit banner?
No, he did not.
Okay, I don't see that here.
He didn't have it.
But
He did have a forest in his deployment zone that he touched everything to at the beginning of the game, but no -1 to hit banner.
Yeah. So it is actually very similar to the list that I played round 1.
Yeah. The -1 attack aura is terrible against me because the only thing that really cares is the Banshees. And the Banshees also do a lot of attacks. Like -1 attack takes the leader lady from 10 to 8. So like it's not the end of the world for me. So it's Dawn of War, and I player place terrain basically perfectly, and have now positioned it so that the Fire Prisms are going to shoot whoever they would like, and it will take the bikes at least 2 shooting phases to get them. That's the map. If I go first, it's 2 shooting phases. If he goes first, it might only be 1 shooting phase. If he goes ham with everything on the front line forward, Tanner does not set up everything on the front line, instead opting to touch forest with as much of his army as he can. I do get the first turn, and my Fire Prisms do in fact look at the bikes and shoot and easily kill 3 of them in the same math of how I kill Void Weavers. Because the way I kill Void Weavers and the way I kill Custodes bikes is identical.
Mhm.
Only easier, I think, because there are 4 wounds on the bikes.
Yep. Yeah, you're more likely to get
So,
the wounds.
yep. And then I do the rest of my army shooting into killing. No, I just killed the 3 bikes, and then my indirect fire picks up 3 of his infantry. May not sound like a lot, but that's 6 of his what? 20 models? Like it's
Well, you've got
he's got
15
like
dudes to
30
hold
models.
objectives, and you killed a third of it,
Yeah,
or a fifth
exactly.
of it. Yeah.
So he then goes and can't see anything in my army. So he moves his army up to the middle of the table to hold the middle of the table. I now go again. I kill all 6 of the bikes that are remaining. I put the shield captain on bike down to 1 wound, and I kill almost all of his infantry. On the 3rd turn of the game, I remove everything that's not Trajan, and on the 4th turn of the game, I kill Trajan. It's roughly what happened. It's not exactly that,
Mhm.
but the deal is that Eldar is fast. It can also I also put things in front of him. Here you go, charge this. Like Eldar is quick. It can way outspeed Custodes. But even while that was happening, I got a 16 on the Ranger secondary because, like we've talked about before, when you drop a unit of Rangers in the back corner of his of his territory, the Custodes can never deal with that. They've
Yep.
no one to send over there. You just get a free 16 victory points by taking the Ranger secondary and putting them back in the corner over there. I also
Almost
did well
always
on
take your idea for Custodes, same reason, right? Is they're not
yeah
going to.
yeah.
They're not coming that way.
I did well on Psychic Interrogation. I did well on Strangle. This is another opponent that incorrectly took Grind Them Down against me. This is he actually never got grind against me in this game,
Mhm.
which is probably because I tabled him. But I'm saying that grind is a difficult, like a really good game of Grind Them Down is 9 points in my mind. You
Yeah.
often aren't killing things on the 1st turn, and on the 5th turn, it is incredibly hard to make sure that you're going to get more kills than they do. Period, because you just don't know what the game state will be like.
If you get 9 points off of it and your opponent is passive on turn 1, that's kind of the most you should expect from it.
Yeah. He did get 1 point on banners, so good on him for that. And then he did strangle twice. So the end score is 97 to 42. Custodes get hit hard. Hank's game is a lot different because Hank's opponent had dreadnoughts as well and managed to get everything advanced really far to the point where Hank had a turn where he had to kill X amount of Custodes or lose, and he just couldn't do it.
Mhm.
Which is just a very different situation than what I had with Tanner. All right, Nick, it's time. We've only been talking for 2 hours and 31 minutes. Sorry, 2 hours 26.
Yeah,
But it's
not
time,
quite at 2.5 yet.
right? So we both covered our lists, and I want to say, before the tournament, did I or did I not say that the perfect scenario was Nick and I playing in the final round for the tournament? I did say it.
It was destined. It was
Yeah.
fated, if one would say.
That's
It
why
was
that's why I
the
let him win that game too, because I wanted to facilitate your dreams. It was
Yeah.
I could have
oh
beat him, but
no, that's so nice of you.
yeah.
The charity. So I want to talk about this game. There's a lot that both Nick and I feel like we could have each done better. So we'll try not to we'll try not to make it sound like the 2 guys that came closest to winning the tournament both think they're bad, which is I think what, like, both Nick and I have been texting each other. I could have done this better. I could have done this better. What we're trying to do is get the video from the tournament, and then Nick and I will do commentary over the video and draw on it and tell a straight like we've been doing on the website. And if we can do that, it'll be super duper cool. But at the moment, we don't have that. Now, obviously, Harlequins have been nerfed, but there's nothing that happens in this game that is at all different from how this particular matchup. He simply has too much stuff. The Death Jester probably overperforms what math today would be on it, but in general, like the lessons here, I think are still reasonable.
Mhm.
So, what were you thinking going into the thing for player place terrain? Because your plan for player place terrain was better than mine.
Yeah, so my goal was to basically set up a staging area in the middle of the board. So if I go first and you deploy defensively and I can't rocket up to touch you, I can at least put my army like in a ruin midboard and then
Okay.
turn 2 threaten to rocket up, touch your ruins and kill your army.
Uh-huh.
But I needed to deploy defensively, like a defensive terrain. And the thing is what I wanted to do was cut these angles off, like put a piece of terrain like up here and then like another one behind it, kind of in such a
Right.
way that you had to like come around with a fire prism in such a weird way that you get an angle, or maybe like because the terrain is pivoted just a little bit, you go over the edge of the terrain and you can't get that angle.
Right.
So I was thinking through during lunch, I was thinking through deployment scenarios for like Hammer and Anvil and Dawn of War and corners. And
Because we
then we
didn't
get
know
to
what
the
mission we
table
were
and I'm
playing
like,
yet.
I'm feeling pretty good. And then Jason was like, vital intel. And I'm like, oh shit, there's another deployment type I didn't plan for. And I think I talked about this on the podcast yesterday. My first ruin that I deploy, because I'm like now scrambling, like all these like terrain layouts that I drew out don't work because we're playing the weird diagonals that Vital has. And I think I deployed my first ruin like 2 inches too far forward, which allowed you to get this like nice small angle into my back lines.
I was deploying terrain like a sociopath. Like I was definitely like, now if I can kill him, a psychopath
Yeah.
aimed at you, sociopath aimed at me. I was just like, oh, now if I can just get this delicious angle, like I was definitely deploying for violence with my terrain for sure.
I mean, the correct thing to do.
Yeah, and I was trying to I wanted to have a safe place for the indirect fire guns to be. And I think when I did that, I actually ended up putting them too far away from your objectives, and it ended up being a little bit problematic. But I liked the idea of the indirect fire just hammering on you every turn and you never actually getting to it. And over time, just the attrition impact that it causes being a problem. I figured that I actually didn't think, I thought that the outcome would be one of two directions. I thought that I would lose a close long game or you would lose a quick game. That's what I thought would happen. Because I had done the practice against Harlequins, and I knew if it goes the way that I normally orchestrate it, I know the level of just violence I can put on the Harlequins. And if you take that too early, before you've done enough to me, the game's over. But if you come at me, I was optimistic that I could spread out enough that we could play a close game, which I think is more of what happened. So my thought was the indirect fire would be an MVP in that regard. And by the way, the indirect fire did get to punch in combat with 7 attacks each before that got nerfed. So we did have that. We did get that. They got to punch a
solitaire,
right?
Yeah. I don't think they did anything, but they did punch him.
Yeah, they did try. So I took the Ranger secondary, and I took Stranglehold, and I took Big Game. Now, I took Big Game, not because I was trying to get a 15, but because there is no scenario where I am not trying to kill the boats as quick as possible. Like the boats have to die, and I want to kill them immediately. If I could have 0 turns with the boats on the table, that'd be great. So that was just an obvious one. And Nick, I show that you took Strangle, Assassinate, and
Deadly Performance.
Deadly Performance is amazing. And Stranglehold, obviously amazing. And Assassinate, I consider a bad take against me, except Death Jester and a boat so good. I hadn't even like as soon as the Death Jester and the boat started moving towards me, I'm like, oh yes, Assassinate's actually great against me. Oh damn it. I could have put my Farseer, Eldrad and the Farseer weren't dooming you much at all. They could have been back with the other indirect fire. They didn't need to be where they were at all for what I was trying to do. And boy, did I get, I could have gotten punished for that, but it seemed like every time you shot at them, you couldn't roll well enough. And so they both having low wounds in the game.
There were like 3 or 4 instances in that game where I was like, this is the time that guy dies. And then you were like, oops, Nick, I rolled all 4 ups. And I'm like,
yeah. Oh, I have fate dice, it turns out. Yeah, so dumb. I do want to say 2 things before we go any further in the game that I think are fair. This tournament ruled slow rolling for rerolls, which I know Frontline's not doing. For luck dice, I think it's important. And Nick obeyed it religiously and was really good about it. I also want to point out that I knew that this would be hard for me to play the tournament because I hadn't been to one in a long time. I've been having some health stuff. I had talked to Nick and the gang about that. I was a mess in our game. I made rules mistakes that are idiotic. None of them that affected the game. All that were caught because Nick was so on it. But I made rules mistakes that are silly that there's no way I should get wrong. And I was shaky. And at one point, Nick had to do something for me because I couldn't get my hands to do something. Like I was a mess, and I just want to thank Nick for being the best possible opponent because it wasn't even a mental health thing. I just legitimately was so tired that I was having a hard time functioning because of the health battles that I've been having. I wasn't having an anxiety issue. There was no rage. I wasn't mad. I didn't get frustrated with our game. I just was not feeling well and having a hard time focusing. And it definitely was frustrating for me. And I got frustrated at myself a few times. And Nick was so good about it. So thank you for the good human there, Nick. Like I made you, I put you as my top favorite opponent
Well, thank you.
after for the tournament because it was such a big deal. So I wanted to make sure I said that because that was a big deal to me.
Thank you.
So I go first. And I poke a fire and I phantasm the fire prisms. Oh, I don't think I needed to. I move a fire prism around a corner and I move the other one to get in range of him. We discover that you can advance the second fire prism to use the strat, which is stupid, but we figure that out. And I move up there and then fire prism shoots, kills 3 void weavers. Right? Exactly like was foretold in the fates.
Yeah, I thought you might not because I think you only rolled like 1 hit dice for your fate and like no other like
Oh
hit
yeah,
or
and
wound.
then I just rolled well.
And it's still just it was like, all right, here you go. And I'm like, bummer. I was like
Yeah.
hoping 1 would live.
And I didn't even have to CP. Oh, I did CP reroll one of the damages. So I would have only killed 2 boats otherwise. So
Yeah.
I killed 3 void weavers. Fire prism moves back. Now on the table, it's diagonal deployment. The fire prism that moved into position to help him is way too close to Nick. If I have this matchup to do over again, I phantasm the fire prisms to aggressively far from him because of my range, and so that it's not so easy for him to get to the void fire prisms. Because I do believe, Nick, that if I got 1 more turn of fire prism strat, the game ends.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's why I did what I did. My turn 1.
Right, which we'll get to in just a second.
Yeah.
The rest of my army mostly hid. I got on some objectives. I did put rangers at the extreme corner of the table on an objective because this is the sticky ones.
Mhm.
And that was really good because those rangers were hard for you to deal with, and they ranger action several times. But I also advanced the shining spears back with them, but just out of range of the troop master being able to charge them. And my idea was, if Nick comes to this part of the table at all, the shining spears are going to destroy whatever this thing is. So my turn ends, and I've killed 3 fire prisms, and it is now Nick's turn. What do you do in response, Nick?
Yeah, so I lost 3 voids, which was like, to be expected. Once I realized I like left you that little angle. That was actually something.
Oh! We have to talk about Phantasm
Yeah.
because it was a huge deal. We agreed, partially because we were mistaken as to how it should be ruled. We agreed that that whoever went first has to Phantasm first, which is the most fair way to handle Phantasm, but it's not at all how it's actually handled. So I wanted to cover that.
Well, that's the weird thing too, because I think there's still some debate on that. The
I think so
stratagem
too.
says if both players have similar abilities, roll off, but the mission
does.
pack says pre-game stratagems at the start of the first battle round are done in player order. So
I
it's
don't
like,
know the answer.
what
Nick,
takes
do you know the
precedence?
answer?
Is it the stratagem or is it the
Traditionally,
match playbook?
so match play will traditionally trump any specific rule because it's trying to restrict what rules can do. Is usually how I would interpret that. It used to be that special rule trumps general rule, but when you're talking about specifically for match play, they're trying to stop things that normally can be done in a different manner. So I
Okay.
would tend to lean towards what the match play packet says,
And
unless otherwise told.
So we should learn about this because this is something that Anthony found Phantasm Order to be ridiculously abusive at the tournament that he was at. So, anyways, in our game, regardless of whether it was right or not, I had to Phantasm first, and I didn't because if I Phantasm the fire prisms, he then Phantasms the boats, right? And then Nick does Phantasm, but we realize that the fire prisms are positioned so well that he simply cannot hide all 6. It is not possible.
Yeah, I can
The
make
fire
3.
prisms move too fast. It's just not possible.
So I even debated putting that second squad I couldn't hide in strat reserves.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if it's gonna die anyways, why
Right.
not? But at that point, you hadn't rolled your fate dice. I was like, maybe he rolls poorly on the fate dice. Maybe these guys don't die, and I live with like 1 boat. And there's
Right.
also some sort of solace in knowing that that's what you're going to shoot turn 1, because I can like plan the rest of my game around. This unit's probably dead, but everything else is fine.
Yeah, and I think that you did a good job of that. So, speaking of that, what did you do at bottom of 1?
Yeah, so once you killed that, right, I was like, I don't want to play this long grindy game with Colin. I think I lose it. Like, there's sticky objectives. You can keep walking
God,
away from
that's
them.
so smart. That's
Yeah.
just like such a genius moment for you. Like, yeah, I can't just grind over here. It's not gonna work.
Yeah,
So good.
I don't have the same level of like uninteractivity. I don't have ignore line of sight. I don't have
Right.
like the fire and fading fire
Right.
prisms with
Yeah.
54-inch range. And Baharoth can also just keep flapping around, capping objectives for you and then walking away from them.
Yeah.
So I blast most of my forces over to your L to touch it and see your fire prism. And I'm like, I'm just gonna shoot that one fire prism. And I'm also gonna take your home objective so you can't hit the button anymore, which is how you get the tertiary points on
Yep.
or not even take it, just stand on it. And then you
Yep.
had like a little contingent of guys up in the top left, and I'm like, I'm also gonna send a little force over there to like clear that out, and I'll let you have the bottom right.
Mhm.
And I also got the Troop Master out because he's got a 29-inch threat range, and I'm like, I'm gonna send this guy in, go kill the Warlock bike, or punch the Fire Prism if I don't kill it, and then tag the other Fire Prism to force you to spend command points on falling that back.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, I think it went pretty well. My first like 3 fusion pistols before the
I
Fire
didn't
Prism.
appreciate. So I didn't understand the true movement of the army, even having played it. This is a thing we've talked about a lot. Like, there's a literary concept that I can never remember the name of. That's like, if I had like a lead weight and I said, Chuck, this is really heavy. There's no words I can tell Chuck that will properly explain to him how heavy that lead weight is until he picks it up.
Mhm.
And shining spears used to be that for the game, and
Mhm.
or double movement
Gene
stealers.
Stealers, yeah.
I didn't appreciate at all that the train I was hiding behind could just be touched by all the boats, and I could have easily considered that, because the train piece that your boats went behind was the first thing you placed. I could have measured, if I had wanted, how far away. Like, I could have foreseen this more than I did. I'm not being too hard on myself. Just looking back at what I could have done differently. I could have positioned the train more so that the boats, in order to touch, have to start out being more exposed. Right?
Mhm.
I could have maybe done that, but it's so fast. And so, like, I'm hiding behind these big pieces of terrain, and all of the Harlequins come and touch all of the terrain. Like, okay, it was really. It's why people are saying that light is the thing that actually needed to get nerfed. That's why people are saying that.
Yep.
So let's see. You killed all 10 Dire Avengers, which were the only thing I had on my home objective.
Mhm.
You killed a Fire Prism because it
Yep.
was simply too close. You were able to, not only were you able to shoot the you could have charged it. You were able to shoot it with fusion pistols. That's how bad I messed up its positioning. Also, you're just so fast. To the credit of the Harlequins, it might have been impossible for me to do what I did first turn and not and survive. Don't know.
Yeah.
So you killed the Dire Avengers. You killed the Rangers that were off doing their own thing on an objective. You killed
The Wave Serpent.
Wave Serpent. Yeah.
And I think I killed
You killed some Banshees. You killed one unit of Banshees.
Yeah.
That was inside of the Wave Serpent that I had no idea would just die. Yeah, so that was rough. But the worst part of it is you were on me, right?
Yeah.
Like, you took the one. So from my point of view, my right flank objective is gone. It just got wrecked. I have 5 Banshees there. He's got 3 Void Weavers there now, and the Solitaire, and the Shadow Seer, and a boat with dudes in it. And I've got 5. And I've got 5 Banshees. The extreme far left corner, I've got 5 Rangers and 5 Shining Spears that have been left alone. In front of me is 5 boats with dudes, 4 of which have dudes inside of it, and both Troop Masters. Now, there was some Troop Master mistakes that did make a big difference for me. I think when the Fire Prism fell back and you used the strat, you moved your Troop Master into my Farseer when the Fire Prism moved back to try to make the Farseer focus his smites on the Troop Master, which didn't work out because it just killed the Troop Master. So you basically just fed the Troop Master to my smites.
Yeah. My thought process behind that is it was like a high risk play, but also he soaks up the smites that are about to go into the boats. So now you can only like do damage to the boats in the shooting phase. And if you don't smite him to death, now the only thing that can shoot him is that Farseer in combat with him with his pistol. And if he doesn't die, kills the Farseer for free. So
that Farseer was a Skyrunner with 4 Shuriken catapults, but you're still right.
Or well, yeah, but he's not a vehicle, right? So he can only shoot pistols in combat, right?
Thank you. Yes, I was confused that he doesn't ever just shoot his pistol. You're right, though. Of course, yes. So that worked out for me. And then the other troop master missed his charge into the second fire prison.
I think no, he was
So
still in the boat.
oh, was he?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, he was. So all the boats, all the deathen, and I just counter punch. The shining spears come back to help the deployment zone. The fire dragon, the fire dragons, the warp spiders position to help. I basically make a matrix web of multiple shooting targets possible per thing, and get ready to let loose. And the letting loose is very effective. Despite the fact that he's killed a bunch of my kill power, I kill one. I think I kill one boat. I think the Banshees kill one Void Weaver in combat. All of the transport boats die, right? All 5 of them? No, 4 of them, because there's
4 of
one
them.
over. There's
Yeah.
one over on the flank. Four transports die, and all of the troops from inside of them, other than one squad, die. And the Shining Spears charge that squad and kill that squad and the troop master from that squad.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, Bahara.
And you in retrospect, and Baharath helped too.
Yeah.
In retrospect, you believe that you could have brought the troops out in a way that stopped me from charging the troop master, which I hadn't even thought about and we didn't talk about. But you're
Yeah.
right, you probably could have.
It was one thing where I measured it out, but then I think we were doing some other stuff and I forgot to tell you. And then it got to the charge phase and you're like, oh, I'm within like 0.8. And I'm like, ooh, that is where my models are. I'm not gonna say now. Oh, but I meant to do this. I should have discussed it with you when I deployed him. So
And just for the record, I probably would have said, "Oh, that sucks." Okay.
yeah, I
Like,
mean, but that's just like discuss before it gets to the point
I
where it
would have done
matters.
shooting differently though if that had been the case, right? I would have tried
Exactly.
to do some. There were pot shots I took at stuff at the end that would have gone into that 5-man unit to make room for the
Yeah.
Shining Spears to get to the
And that's
guy.
where it's like really important to play by intent. And if you forget to tell your opponent something and like that's where the models
Yeah.
are, I mean, yeah.
Nick continues giving a class in sportsmanship.
Gotta accept you made a mistake, you know?
Nick continues with his class in sportsmanship. Yeah. So I actually now, I believe at the end of 2, or going into bottom of 2, I clearly have a lot more stuff alive than you.
Mm-hmm.
But I stopped playing the mission kind of entirely because of how much damage was done to me and how spread out my forces are trying to respond. Because if I don't immediately kill the Harlequins, I get tabled at this point. And so I'm now not paying attention to the mission. And so we're in this game where I'm killing the Harlequins very, very quickly while trying to remember to play the damn mission. And I feel like going back, I could have played the mission better. But Nick just got efficiency after efficiency. But what ended up being the game, the solitaire goes hauling across the map. Nick has assassinate. The solitaire goes into Eldrad and doesn't manage to. What?
Yeah. He's on 2 wounds.
Yes.
Yep.
And thanks to fate dice and some bad rolling from Nick, Eldrad survives the solitaire, and then they smite him off. And if Eldrad dies right there, I lose lose 3 points on assassinate. 4 points on assassinate because Eldrad's the warlord. Thank you. 4 points on assassinate, and I lose Eldrad's powers and his smite, which means the solitaire touches the other Farseer. It's a cascading effect that both Nick and I agree that's a turn 4 moment that wins Nick the game if Eldrad dies. We both agree. That's how close the game was.
There was actually even at the end of the game when I tried to do the embrace strat on Baharoth, if I killed him there and you didn't, I know it's like it just shows how close the game was. I think did you have 1 CPU left at the end, or were you out of CPU?
There's no
Okay.
way I'm gonna remember that.
Yeah. If I kill a Baharoth there, it also flips the game too, I think.
Okay.
Because that's like assassinate, that's stranglehold, that's deadly, and then you don't get stranglehold and an extra button hit next turn.
Right.
So it's like crazy that it came down to like the last play.
There's a moment at the end of 1 where both Nick and I should have taken time with ourselves to think through the rest of the game. I think that 1 was so violent. Really, let me even say it differently. At the end of top of 2, so I took 3 voids. You took a bunch of my army away. I took a bunch of your army away. Right then, I think both you and I needed to reanalyze the entire matchup independently, not together, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that I didn't do that enough, and I could have played significantly better from there. And I actually think that you also were reacting to what was happening rather than forming a new plan. Do you think that's fair, or did you actually replan at that point?
My turn 2 plan was to my turn 1 plan was to basically stat check you And then, I mean, you threw a lot of dice at me. I also feel like, I mean, I think you even commenting on it. I couldn't make a single save, like even with like luck rerolls. I made a few, but like I feel like I kept
Later
rolling.
in the game, you just make all of the saves, but early in the game, you could
Yeah,
not.
the turn it mattered. It was like, oh, all my boats died. Bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
think
But
certainly
the
the wrong
last
order.
the last two Void Weavers were impossibly hard to kill because of their
Yeah.
desire to make involts.
At that point, I was like, I need to keep this forward pressure up because like I've already committed my entire army. If I decide to just keep running away from you, the Shadow Weavers are just going to pick me apart, and like the Shining Spears are going to come chase me down,
Right.
and Baharoth too. Like I need to make it. I need to be places to make it hard for him to like land and take objectives and stuff like that.
The Shining Spears with Fortune on them were weirdly hard for you to deal with, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Like because you couldn't just say, "Oh, my shuriken goes there." You couldn't say that because like I'm doing other things. But like when the Shining Spears came back and killed that troops, they killed a boat and shooting, and then they killed. Actually, I think they killed. I think because of where Doom and Guide and stuff were, I think the spears might have killed two boats. And no, they killed a boat and shooting with their spears, and they killed infantry with their shuriken, and then they charged and killed 5 more infantry and the troop master.
Mm-hmm.
And in response to that, you killed 2 Shining Spears. And then the other 3, maybe you killed 3, I can't remember. And then the couple of Shining Spears that were left went across the table and continued getting value for me. And at the end of the game, I had just the Exarch left, and he was headed to your home objective.
Yeah.
Like the Shining Spears were incredible in our matchup, and I don't think the bigger base size would have changed that. Maybe it would have made the charge and the troop master impossible. That could be, but but I just mean in general, where I hid them and how I moved them, that's the one game where I look at them and think, okay, maybe the bigger bases, and maybe I take 4, right? And they're easier to hide than 5. But I loved the Shining Spears, and they were really good in that game, and I just felt like the bigger bases would have been a huge drag, I guess.
I like how they're a good unit, and then since they have the core keyword, you can just slap all the buffs on them and turn them into a great unit. And that's like a
Yeah,
cool theme in your list in general. Is any good unit can become great.
they can be obsec too because
Yeah.
they're core. Like it's super great, and they can't advance the charge anymore, but their shooting is so much better than it was before. It's more efficient, and the guns are better. And also, the 18-inch on the Shuriken catapult means I'm off here doing the thing. Oh man, I forgot I have to kill this thing way over here, right? Whereas before, Shuriken was 12, and so you were very limited in where the spirits could shoot when they came in from Deep Strike or where they came in. That extra 6 inches just gives so much flexibility. There was a turn against Max where the spears come in. He doesn't have any CP to stop me from going into his suits, and they come in and they shoot all their shooting off to the sides and then charge forward onto an objective with OBSEC on them. And it's just like so good. And then get wrecked by the commander who's better than them in combat. But whatever. So yeah, in the end, our game was incredibly, incredibly close, and I hope we can get the footage. I think that my list was not as good into Harlequins as I thought it would be. I do think I made the best thing I could to deal with
Yes.
Harlequins with what I knew. I do think after playing that matchup that my hubris about Craftworld Eldar and Harlequins is probably a little bit exaggerated. I do think that pre-nerf Harlequins and Craftworld Eldar were a good matchup for each other, but there's so much that could have gone wrong for me in that game. Like that game was, you piloted that list so well. I gotta say my elves are pretty happy that all the nerfs hit you.
Yeah, I agree. No, it felt like the game was you gave yourself the tools to succeed, and then it came down to a series of coin flips. And
Yeah,
then like you kept winning all the coin flips, and it like cascaded down to me
yeah,
losing the game. So yeah, but like I
because
mean,
you also just could have gone first.
yeah, and I think that would have been it.
Yeah,
Which
I think
is
it would. I think knowing now what I know about how I deployed, yeah, I think I messed up deployment, and I probably would have caught that the fire prisms were screwed during pregame, and I would have had to deep strike them.
Yeah.
Is what would have happened. So, and that would have been a super different game. I really appreciate the game with you. I was really, really good. I don't know. We ended up keeping the tournament long somehow. Like I haven't gone back and looked. I don't know how we played for longer than 3 hours. I have no idea. Like it doesn't make any sense. But
Yeah.
we were the last game done. So
I think
weird.
we were told the end time a little incorrectly, so we thought our start time was like a
Well,
little different.
you guys also started later than everybody else.
Oh,
Yeah.
did we?
Yeah. There's
Oh.
a bunch of conversation about who's going to be on stream and getting you guys together and everything. We were already playing by the time you guys were going in that room. So.
Stream delay is a thing.
Could be. All right. Well, I've got
You're
6
good.
minutes and 38 seconds left to keep us under 3 hours.
I was just thinking about that.
So so going forward, I'm going to play a lot of Eldar. I'm enjoying NIDS quite a bit. I will probably take NIDS to tournaments as well, but I'm going to be an Eldar player this year. ATC is the most important tournament to me of the year, and I'm probably going to be the Eldar player for that. So I'll be focused on that. Mr. Nick, I would like to hear, are you going to keep playing Harlequins? What's next for you?
I'm kind of in the spot of like 3 different lists. Obviously, Necrons are something I could go back to. I feel like they've definitely gotten weaker with Armor of Contempt,
Okay.
or at
Yeah.
least like their options in their book have gotten smaller.
You can take these things. Yeah, I know.
Yes.
I know what you mean.
I'm also interested in trying Dark. I know Light's still good. I know Light's like the best thing into NIDS. I honestly don't really care about beating NIDS. Like that book's ridiculous. I'd rather play Dark, which has extra AP, and go punch Marines in melee. That sounds really fun.
You're
Yeah.
telling me we're gonna have? Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Or Thousand Suns. We have a Thousand Suns army in our house that I've played against a lot, and they always look really fun. They seem like
Oof.
Necrons, but with a psychic phase.
They got a lot of buffs with
Yeah.
the
They're-
+1 armor shows real strong on them.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
any one of those 3 interests me, and I'm definitely gonna play one of those 3 at GW Seattle. Just don't know
Okay.
which one yet.
Cool. Chuck, what's next?
I don't know. The changes to guard, Centurions being more exciting. I feel like there's a lot of stuff that preys on the Bellacore list that are just showing up that are going to be popular. And since that list sort of hangs out in the mid table, I'm going to find all the Marine players, right? So
Mhm.
I don't feel super strong about where it sits. And the other part of that is like Soul Grinders is about the best thing I can summon in as an option, to flip from the horror part. And they're not that great either. So I'm looking at a bunch of other chaos stuff. Like I said earlier, I really like Plagueburst Claws. I think that's really great. And Terminators. So I might go back to some Emperor's Children and Death Guard combos.
All right. And Mitch already alluded to where he's going.
Something I want to say is I think we're actually also going to see Grav rise back up in Space Marine lists because, like, obviously Marines are going to be fighting a lot of Marines. The Grav Sense, are still putting out 8 shots each, plus, either their missiles or their Hurricane Bolters, so they can do 2 different jobs. There's a lot of different interesting things that I think it's cool to see a bunch of options that hadn't been viable. All of a sudden, you're like, oh, maybe that.
Right?
But yeah,
All right.
guard all the way.
Coming up for the network, we have all of our normal shows this week are back in action. I would like to formally invite Chuck to make a bunch of content with armies that are not the things we keep playing next weekend, if you could find the time.
I'll be on an
maybe-
island far away.
Okay, well, not you then. I want to try to play somebody next weekend and get some bat reps put together where I don't play elves. I want to play some Marines and some Guard. I want to see some variety. So we'll try to set that up. And that's it for now. We'll be back in 2 weeks where we'll be talking about our prep for the GW event, or it'll be right after that with us going to the GW event, but not me, sadly. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Nick, for coming to the 3-hour event of
Yeah.
our show. Really
Thanks for
appreciate
having
you. Yeah, and you were just wonderful, and you're just an amazing opponent, and I hope that everybody gets to play you and lose to you, other than me. That's my desire for you. So thank you, everybody. We'll be back soon. Much love, and that we're out.
Bye.
See ya.
See you later.